Cinco. Oh my God, 11.
We're recording?
Okay, Barbara, meeting please come to order, and Barbara, please call the roll.
We have Commissioners Levine, Funderburk, Barad, Noonan, and Vasquez present.
This proceeding is broadcast on channel 35. The exact broadcast times can be found by contacting channel 35. I have no opening remarks. We have 11 public comment cards. Is it Yvette or Barbara?
Me.
Barbara, go ahead.
Okay, we have cards. Please limit your comments to 2 minutes. The first speaker is Salman Aksad, and after that, Tremel Lang.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is regarding parking lot, Los Angeles, 5P73732-1, Exhibit E. I got this.
Could you speak a little bit more into the microphone?
I got this bit about 2.5 years ago. I even had the lot. They didn't offer hand over to me, so it's been 2.5 years almost, you know. And I was Tuesday, February 2013-18 with this agenda. I haven't heard anything yet, you know. And I left file with Mrs. Barbara about the details. So please let me know what's going on.
I'm confused.
Thank you.
Okay, do you want to hand that letter in? Because if you handed it in before, we passed it out, but you want to hand it in to the officer, then I can grab it.
Yeah, I can do that. Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you very much.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, the next speaker is Tremel Lang, and after that is Emily Samavayan.
Hello, my name is Tremel Lang. I thank you for allowing me to speak today. I'm a student at CSUN, California State Northridge, there's to say. And my concern would be for the sustainable practices or the divestment within the power plant in Utah. I was looking up to find further process or progress within that. I like that you lowered or divested 21%, I should say, from the coal plant in Arizona. Basically, I just would like to know what progress has been made with the Intermountain power plant, and I would like to know what progress is going on, because we are looking forward to our future as global warming is continuing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next speaker is Emily Samvalian, and after that, Natalie Amela.
Hello, my name is Emily Samvalian, and I'll be talking about the same power plant as my fellow student Tremel spoke about. I'd also like to thank you for allowing me to speak in this beautiful LEED certified building as well. As people living in Los Angeles County, we are a model to citizens not only in... Excuse me, I'm so excited to talk to you guys.
We're very excited to hear you.
Yeah.
As people living in Los Angeles County, we are a model to other cities as to quantity and quality of life. I know that we wanted to become more clean and less dependent on fossil fuels by 2030. If we were to continue to be dependent on fossil fuels, we would not achieve that goal. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next speaker is Natalie Amela, and after that, Claudio Silas.
Hello and good morning. My name is Natalie Amela, and I'm also a student over at California State University Northridge. I am a sustainability minor, and today I'm here to urge you to stay away from the use of fossil fuels in the power plants and to look for a future in clean energy. Investing funds for fossil fuels will just be a step backward for Los Angeles, and I feel that we need to accelerate our goal by investing in complete clean energy. And as a student and fellow Angelino, I want to be proud that the city of Los Angeles will move forward to use clean energy. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Claudia Silas, and after that, Janet Valenzuela.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Claudia Sillas, and I am a student from Cal State University Northridge. I am speaking on behalf of the city of Northridge and demand that the DWP demonstrates that they have tried everything to avoid new gas before looking in Angelinos to 30 years of burning more fossil fuels to power our city and pay for a new power plant. We may need to shut off early. This is important because we need to protect our city and look for the future of our city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Janet Valenzuela, and after that, Alex Ortega.
Good morning. My name is Janet Valenzuela, and I'm a resident of Huntington Park, a neighbor to the city of Vernon and a city of commerce, both heavily industrialized areas dependent on trucks to export and import goods. I live within 10 miles of 6 major interstate freeways and 2 miles away from the Alameda Corridor, and I am far too familiar with diesel death zones, and I'm referring to high risk of lung disease and cancers from diesel exhaust. And I'm here today to speak on behalf of power plants and to suppress the use of fossil fuels. Already in El Segundo, which is in regard, shows in where the scatter goods power plant is located. The CalEnviro screen shows that PM 2.5 diesel hazardous waste cleanup sites are already above 80% of the pollution burden percentile as significant indicators to the vulnerable exposure of harmful chemicals. LADWP commissioners, how can this infrastructure modernize and meet the rights of people to have access to clean air, water, and power free of destructive elements for all stakeholders as you present a plan that further rationalizes the use of poison in our communities? As a future home buyer, it is my responsibility to advocate for utility services that align with equitable, affordable housing and access to renewable energy. And so I advocate for the implementation of VNEM to expand on solar access and investments in solar markets. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next speaker is Alex Ortega, and after that, Jocelyn Gallega Rosenthal.
Hi, good morning. Hello, my name is Alex Ortega, and I live in the San Fernando Valley, and I'm also a CSUN student. I'm here to urge the Department of Water and Power to seriously reconsider its plans to repower the 3 basin coastal gas plants and instead redirect funds toward using cleaner and renewable energy to power our city. Living in the San Fernando Valley, I know too well the dangers of air pollution from operating gas facilities near my home. So I'm here to urge you to oppose any new investments to outdated technologies like fossil fuels and gas power, and instead support funding cleaner energy technologies. Retiring these aging gas plants and replacing them with cleaner energy alternatives not only assures a cleaner future, but also a future in which we don't have to worry about breathing harmful emissions from these power plants. Now is the perfect opportunity to show your commitment to cleaner and renewable energy, starting with the retirement of the Scattergood plant. So again, I hope that you will show your commitment in opposing any new investments in gas plants and instead support clean and renewable energy. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Jocelyn Gallega Rosenthal, and after that, Lai Fan Gad.
Good morning, commissioners and ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jocelyn Gallega Rosenthal, and I am a representative from 2 neighborhood councils, the Echo Park Neighborhood Council and the Rampart Village Neighborhood Council, to which I am the liaison to the Neighborhood Council Sustainability Alliance. I am here to speak and to express to you my total dismay with the fact that you are still considering the possibility of extending the use of LNG, liquid natural gas. So I am opposed to the spending $630 million on the scattergood facility. I urge you to look at truly committing ourselves as a city to renewable energy, to research distributive energy, research developing storage of energy, and also virtual net metering to allow low-income communities to participate in the new effort of using renewable energy. So thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Lai Fan Gad, and after that, Ashley Gomez.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak. My name is Lee Fan Gad. I'm an LADWP customer for 2 houses, but the difference is LADWP, I have a credit of over $2,000 with LADWP because I have 13 panels of solar on my rooftop. And I have 2 electric cars that my husband and I both drive every day. And still, we have so much excess. So I would, because of net metering. And I believe that if I know we're lucky we have this rooftop to put the solar in. For multiple unit affordable housing, people may not have the resources to do that. But for a multi-unit housing, they have a big rooftop. If the state could direct the fund planned for the scattergood gas plant and use that for subsidizing these low-income people and switch them over to solar. I know solar is sustainable. There's more than enough. We live in sunny Southern California. We have plenty of sunshine. Why do we have to dig and frack and get everything out of the planet? We have children. They need to live. If we keep digging and fracking and get all this gas and pollute and destroy our planet, I don't think our kids will have any future to speak of. So I have this dream. I have this dream that every rooftop, every unused space is covered with solar panels, because with enough solar panels, we can provide more than enough energy for all of the people who live there, and we have no emission and no pollution for the environment. I know it because I'm a living example of that. I know I drove by this Beacon Solar project. You have no idea how excited I was. I almost jumped out of my car. Actually, I stopped and looked at it for a long time. LADWP is doing a great job, and please keep up the good work and don't go backwards. Don't build any more gas power plants. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next speaker is Ashley Gomez, and after that, Graciela Geyer.
Good morning. My name is Ashley Gomez. Today, I make 3 simple requests. The first is that you oppose any new investments in gas plants, including scattergood. The second is that you support spending and accelerating the move to clean energy. And the third, like my fellow student, is to demand that you demonstrate that you have tried everything to avoid new gas power plants in order to avoid locking us Angelenos to 30 more years of burning fossil fuels. I ask for these 3 things to stop the promotion of mining and storing of natural gas. Living in Northridge, I know firsthand what damage a natural gas leak can cause to the surrounding community's health after living through the Aliso Canyon gas leak. I would like for you to keep this event into consideration, because if you move to open more natural gas power plants, you would indirectly be to blame for future catastrophic events like this. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay, the next speaker is Graciela Geyer, and after that, Walker Wells.
Good morning. My name is Graciela Geyer. I'm here on behalf of the Sierra Club My Generation campaign. Our campaign is for an equitable transition to 100% clean energy, and we believe that this revolution in energy is also an incredible opportunity to remake our economy. We have so much clean power companies in Los Angeles. This is a real opportunity also to create new jobs and to create new business opportunities as we transition to a clean energy economy. And as you hear the update today on renewable energy, the decision before you this year to repower 46% of our gas generation is at direct odds with that goal. If we are planning to eliminate fossil fuels from our grid, we must take this as an opportunity to stop digging ourselves deeper and invest in clean energy instead. And the imperative that we have to avoid gas and increase access to clean energy for all is very real and urgent. And since the DWP hit pause last year, other utilities have managed to avoid gas in sensitive areas. Reliability must run power plants. And are we learning from these utilities? Are we learning from these opportunities? And instead of repowering gas, that we can replace it with clean alternatives instead, and use our hard-earned ratepayer dollars to accelerate our transition to clean energy. Thank you so very much.
Thanks.
The next speaker is Walker Wells, and after that, Alicia Rivera.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Walker Wells. I'm with Global Green. I'm here to talk about item number 6, the 100% renewable study. Just a few thoughts on that. All these comments touch on this topic of equity and how we're distributing rebates and incentives around the region and the DWP service territory. So you've heard a lot about the natural gas question. I'm not going to touch on that. The main points are that the 100% renewable study should incorporate a couple of fundamental topics. The first is to fully integrate the opportunities for energy efficiency. So for about the last year and a half, Global Green's been part of a study looking at the energy efficiency potential in low-income housing, both income restricted and market rate affordable housing, along with a number of other environmental groups. And we found that there's 20 to 25% energy efficiency that's out there to be harvested, but these particular property types are not availing themselves of the programs and rebates at the same level as single-family homeowners or higher-end multifamily properties. So we've come up with some suggestions about how to augment or revise some of the programs and enhance outreach. But we certainly feel that that efficiency should be captured in the analysis of what it takes to get to be 100% renewable. And the second topic is just on the fact that in LADWP territory, you currently can't do what's called virtual net energy metering. And this is something that you're able to do in the investor-owned utilities and has been around for about the last 10 years, and I've certainly worked on projects that do this. And this just allows you to put one big photovoltaic system on the roof of an apartment building and share all the energy that's generated among the apartments. That is not possible in LA right now. So what we end up with is a big roof with a little photovoltaic system that only serves the common area, and we don't take advantage of all the energy generation potential of that rooftop because of this regulatory and, as I'm told, sort of billing and financial problem. So the folks at Grid Alternatives are much more well-versed in this particular topic, but how does this tie into the 100% renewable study? We also need to fully account for the ability to generate renewable energy in the basin by allowing for this virtual net energy metering to happen. Both of these things would provide benefits to low-income renters, which ties us back into equity, not just in who's hired in procurement, but actually how the incentives and rebates are distributed across the region, both geographically and across income classes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next speaker is Alicia Rivera, and after that, Kent Manal.
Good morning. My name is Alicia Rivera. I'm a community organizer with Communities for a Better Environment in Wilmington. Wilmington is one of the largest oil fields in the state and in the nation, and mostly people in Wilmington are low income and poor. And as you may know, Wilmington, we are surrounded by refineries and oil extraction, so we are in the middle of the fossil fuel emissions, and people are suffering in their health. There is so much asthma, and the children have to miss school because they can't breathe. So people were very hopeful when we heard that DWP is offering to stop the reliance on gas for our energy, and that we're going to be getting in the near future cleaner energy in the energy that you provide us. So we're very hopeful about that, but at the same time, if you want to repower, restructure power plant, that's going, on the other hand, it doesn't go hand in hand with your efforts to offer us clean energy. So methane is the most powerful greenhouse gas that gas emit. Pretty much gas is methane, and that's trapping the heat in the atmosphere and keeping us warm. So all the money that you are planning to invest in repurposing power plant, which Wilmington has one, should really be invested in cleaner energy. People are very excited about the idea of using energy in our homes from cleaner energy. So please keep that up and don't go the other way. So we ask you to stop repurposing power plants and keep the oil and the gas on the ground. We need to do that if we are to survive as a people in this planet. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, the next speaker is Kent Manal.
Hey, good morning, commissioners. I'm Kent Minot. I work with the Sierra Club and the Watts Clean Air Group. And I wanted to talk briefly this morning about agency. Agency can mean when you have some say over your life, some influence. If you have no agency, then you have no ability to control or influence your own future. The people who are speaking here before me are all taking agency. They're trying to have an influence on their future. A fossil fuel future is a future where we don't have any agency. All we can do is just buy the gas and pump it and watch the little meter click by and stare at that sign that tells us we're getting cancer just by standing there. But with an electrical future, a clean energy future, we have agency. We can come here and do this. We can come here and have these conversations. A particular case in point, I brought you a little flyer for the Watts Earth Day event, and a particularly interesting thing is happening in Watts on Earth Day. We're having the groundbreaking for our megawatts solar installation on St. John's United Methodist Church. Now, this project had its beginning in conversations with engineers from LADWP, who came down and gave us a detailed report about the different ways we could go on creating a solar project at the church. And that's an example of agency, of the community of Watts deciding what kind of energy future they wanted and working with you all to create it. So I hope you will all listen to the remarks that we heard here today and continue to give us more agency in our future, and also show up on Earth Day, Saturday, April 21st, and I'll leave some of these to pass around. The commission and staff are all welcome to come. Thank you very much.
You can just hand them to the officer, or
the officer?
Yeah, and he'll hand them to us.
Thank you, Ken.
Okay, that was the last speaker card for item 2.
Okay, thank you all. General Manager.
Yes, I do have several comments. Maybe first I'll turn it over to Rich to talk about some of the snowfall and drought and precipitation and where we're at.
Sure, we mentioned this a little bit, but we have the final numbers in now that our April 1st snow survey is complete, and the average of all our snow courses came in at 66% of normal. And as I mentioned last time, it's normal to be below normal, 6 out of 10 years, and that's exactly where we're at. The question always is, how much below normal? So 66% will result when we look at the total runoff, which is a combination of snowmelt, precipitation, rain that we get all throughout the year up in our watershed, and then this water that flows in the streams. And when we look at all of that, we will be at about 78% of normal over the next 12 months. So March wasn't a miracle. I'm calling it miracle-ish. There was about 11 to 14 day period there where we basically doubled the amount of snowpack that we had. So that was significant, that the amount that occurred up there. What that will mean is over the next year that we will have to purchase about 46% of our water from the Metropolitan Water District. So we're still reliant upon them in this, really what is not yet, is not a drought, but certainly is a dry year. And the rest of the supplies will be made up of local recycled water, groundwater, and aqueduct water. So we've put out, or will be putting out a press release letting the public know that where we came in at 66% of normal for our snowpack. but also encouraging them to really excel still more. You know, they did meet the mayor's executive directive goal of 20%. There's been a slight rebound on that, but overall, compared to the rest of the state, they've done excellent. So we're proud of how much water they've saved in the past, and we'll continue our commitment to helping them do that through a variety of rebate programs, and also that we're going to keep up the pace and hopefully increase the pace of our building up our local water supplies in terms of not only water conservation, but also water recycling, stormwater capture, and most significantly cleaning up the San Fernando Basin so that we can utilize that more.
Thank you. Ann, you wanted to share some information?
Good morning, Commissioners. At the February 20th board meeting, our former CFO, Neil Guglielmo, reported that the power system had received a long-term credit rating upgrade from S&P. Last month, Fitch Ratings also gave the power system an upgrade. Power is now rated AA2, AA, and AA by Moody's, S&P, and Fitch Ratings, respectively. This is the second highest rating and one notch higher than where we were 2 years ago. Credit ratings for other DWP projects in SCAPA and IPA were also upgraded as a result of the power system's upgrade. Credit upgrades generally result in lower financing costs, as we saw in the most recent bond sale. At the last week of March, FSO successfully refunded $415,675,000 in power system bonds. This refinancing was the first sale since Fitch and S&P upgraded the power system to AA. The recent sale resulted in credit spreads to the tax-exempt municipal index of 1 to 11 basis points, tighter than spreads on power system sales since Moody's had first upgraded the power system back in 2016. The recent refunding resulted in an average spread of 3.2 basis points, lower than the lowest spread for any of the other 5 sales since the Moody's upgrade, which we believe can be partially attributed to the recent Fitch and S&P upgrades. The refunding resulted in nearly $113 million of debt service savings, equal to over $5.4 million per year spread over the next 20 years. On a present value basis, the savings are nearly $86 million, equal to 20.6% of refunded par, which well exceeds LADWP's present value savings target of 3%. Positive credit ratings take planning and responsiveness to issues. Soon after, the multi-year rate actions were restructured and approved by the board and the council in April of 2016. The power system has seen a series of rating upgrades from the credit rating agencies. Thank you for your approval of the rate action, and I want to thank the Water, Power, and Joint Division employees for all their hard work on the financial issues. I'd also like to thank some of the FSO staff for their hard work. Some staff from our debt management group, our financial planning section, rates and budgets are here, including Mr. Mario Ignacio, who is Assistant CFO and Treasurer and our Chief Accounting Employee. If you guys could please stand from FSO. Mario participates in all of the bond sales. And Mario goes back to New York every time to make sure our customers get the best ratings possible. So
this is the type of report that underscores the extraordinary capabilities and accomplishments of our staff. And so I know I'm speaking for all of my colleagues when I compliment all of you. These things go generally underneath the radar, and they're among the most important accomplishments of our staff and our department. So this is wonderful news for every citizen of Los Angeles who's a ratepayer of the DWP, and you guys deserve incredible praise for the work you do.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ann.
Thank you. Completely agree. Have a couple more items. It's just an exciting day for me. We're going to have a presentation on item 18 a little later in the agenda, which is LADWP now has a chapter of the Society of Women Engineers, which is a professional group, which is wonderful. As you know, I believe our staffing should represent the diversity of the community we serve, and this is one more step in getting in that direction, as is the next item, which is really exciting. We have now a new group of engineering managers that were just recently promoted, and this represents the future of our organization. We have, as you know, a huge staff turnover coming. We've hired a number of engineering managers, mostly into their first management position, And I'd like you all to stand up now if you could, and just like say, look at our future and look how wonderful they look. Thank you so much.
They look great.
Thank you very much for your hard work on your career up to this point and the hard work I know you'll exhibit in the future. And about a third of these promotions are female, which again is moving us in the right direction and getting us to meet our goals. But every person is important, and we look forward to your hard work. Finally, I'd like to make a brief presentation on our Crenshaw customer service facility. We're doing what's called a soft opening right now. What I've always learned, if you're smart, you don't have your grand opening before you've spent a month or two testing everything out. So we're in that test phase to make sure everything works, and it appears so.
Why didn't you mention that a few years ago before you were here?
But I want to give you a few pictures because this is amazing to me, and this is how we're moving forward. And I want over time every customer center to have this sort of look and feel. So we're charging at Crenshaw. We went from 2 electric vehicle charging stations to 22 electrical vehicle charging stations, which is an amazing resource for the community. On top of that, we're looking at our marketing and branding so that people start easily becoming aware that, hey, there's charging stations, there's a location, there's an LEDWP facility. You can see we're painting on the certain kind of identifications that this is a electric vehicle charging space. We've got signage above the chargers. Here's some of that chargers. It's telling you, hey, come charge, but you can only stay 4 hours so that another person can come in and charge. So we are looking at how do we maximize the use of those and the benefit to the community. There's some more chargers on the right. We've got exterior branding so we can let customers know this is an LEDWP facility. You have to be able to catch someone's eye as they're driving past. So you have kind of a large single color. People start going, oh wait, that's an LEDWP facility. They see our logo. They see the wonderful landscaping that we have, and start being aware, oh, that's a facility, I can go utilize that. Banners so that you can see from the street, Charge Up Crenshaw, with letting everybody know that we've brought chargers to this local area. I just think that looks wonderful. This is what the inside of the center has been revised to look like. Very welcoming, bringing some artwork, making it a more exciting location, really showing that LA invests in our community. We're coming soon. Part of this launch is permanent pole banners, again, that you see in the parking lot and near the center so that you know there's charging stations there. A close-up of that. And then branding. This branding is important. Again, there's so many things trying to catch your attention as you're driving by, as you're moving through the city, that we've got to, again, bring an awareness quickly that here's a resource for you. And then finally, some external signage. As part of that, we also repaved the entire parking lot of about over 80 spaces. 2 of those chargers are the fast chargers, so you can literally go in there and charge your car in half an hour. Right now, we're going to be open from 8 to 8 Monday through Friday, and 8 to 5 on Saturdays. We've got to figure out at some point how we get this to a 24-hour resource, but again, doing things in stages so we learn before we implement, because it seems that that's the right way to go. Anyway, it's just so excited about that, and again, starting to look at our community centers as being resources and having more than just the ability to pay your bill at that location. So very excited about that, and when we do schedule the grand opening, which will be in several weeks, we will let all the board know so that we can come out there and have an event.
David, do you have plans to have other community centers like this throughout the city?
We'd like to get there. Right now, we own about half of our customer centers and we lease about half of the others. And I don't think it's effective to invest this much in a leased facility, so staff is starting to look at maybe instead of 15 facilities, we have 10 larger facilities that are spread throughout the city. So we're starting that plan on looking at, at where we should be, where there's available parking so that we can have these chargers there, and looking at the long-term plan. But we start with this one, and we'll start looking at owned sites for this rehabilitation, and then start looking at what we should buy and what we should divest as far as leased facilities.
What department is looking into that? Is that real estate?
We have a real estate division within the department that's looking at that in conjunction with customer service, who knows where the locations that have the highest attendance of customers, which is, again, where we'd start.
Do you have a timeline?
I will tell you, it will be in the years because of the amount of effort to purchase a location and go through and rehab. But I'd like to see us be doing at least one a year of these.
Well, I think it's very exciting. And I think that the signage is great. The whole thing is great. I like the green signs.
Thank you.
Yeah, I may not have to give the evil eye to people who sit there anymore.
Okay, thank you.
That's a good thing.
That concludes my report.
Can I say something, please? I just wanted to thank you, Dave, and the rest of the staff for putting up with my numerous photo opportunities that I've taken on customer service Saturdays to take photographs of these centers. This hasn't just happened at Crenshaw. There have been upgrades in the valley as well, because I go out there and I've seen them, and I've seen the schedule that Sharon Grove put together that is a staged way of doing it, making sure that the customers are seeing it. So together with the bond rating increase, which I think is the foundation, we can't do anything without our credit rating and our money. I think that this is great news, and it's a great way of looking at the future. But I want to express my personal thanks, because I have spent a good deal of time, not just in that one, but in the one in the Van Nuys, and the one in Westwood, and the one in Watts, on the customer service Saturdays. And it's great to see these improvements being made. And especially I want to thank all of the staff that put the effort into doing that.
Thank you. Item 4, comments from commissioners on agendized items. Commissioner comments? Hearing none. Hearing some, hearing none.
I have a comment about AB or RPS, but maybe we'll tackle that when we get there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Because we'll get there. We'll get there after the management report. Ratepayer advocate.
Comments as they occur during the meeting.
Okay, that will be welcomed. Item 6, 100% renewable energy. There apparently is some interest in this management report among the people who are here.
Yes. This is a report that I'd like to join RACO at the table with. We'll be working together on this, and I think
is there objection?
It's easier to do. Thank you.
Hearing none.
So it was exciting to hear everybody come today and make their comments. And this is a really exciting issue to deal with. And it isn't, when I say issue, one thing when you kind of get to my age, you have no hair and a lot of experience, especially the no hair. You learn that everything is more complicated than it appears. And being in the business for almost 3 decades, a lot of our goals are very short statements, which I like. 100% renewables by this date, no greenhouse gas emissions by that date. A lot of it, however, is just focused on the power industry. And in California, we can't completely control California. We absolutely can't control DC, it appears. But we can control what we're doing locally. And I'd like to bring the discussion here, and this is one of, I think, many. I think of this as more of a roundtable type discussion, of starting to talk about looking at everything in a bit of a larger spectrum, and looking at this spectrum or this breadth with the ultimate goal of how do we get more renewables lower greenhouse gas emissions on a faster basis in more of a comprehensive approach than just looking at what we can do in the power sector and basically kind of ignoring a lot of the other things. We are in a transition period. We want to get to 100% renewables. That final date is not yet set, but we are on a pathway to get to 2/3 renewables in less than 18 years. I sit there and think before kids born today can vote, we'll be at 2/3 renewables. And that's going to be a major accomplishment from 1/3 today where we're at. We really have to start looking at resources and planning for extremes. As you all know, that now it's climate change, but in a power industry, we're concerned about climate extremes because the days absolutely have been hotter and colder in the last couple decades than they have since measurable time. Water, more drought or more rain than in centuries when they've done tree ring studies. A few years ago, it was the 2 driest years back to back in the last 600 to 800 years. So we are really looking at climate extremes and how we can leverage our generation and transmission assets to the best. As you know, we're going through the 100% renewable study. We're having open discussions on that. We realize here nothing can be done overnight. Everything really, in such a huge industry and a huge infrastructure, does take years to change. But if we don't pick where we're going, we're never going to get there. But again, I'd like to, and this will primarily be presented by Reiko with me interrupting, and she's already prepped for my apologies every time I interrupt. But Reiko is one of the smartest people I've ever met, and she knows this industry and knows the challenges, and then looks at how to accomplish what we need to, and bringing all that intelligence but a whole bunch of common sense at the same time. And it's what I've appreciated about her as we move forward, looking at, again, the details, the common sense, the impacts to customers, the impacts to operations, the impacts to reliability, basically the full spectrum that we need to be considering. So I'm going to turn it over to her to start going into some of the details. But again, this is how we get where we need to go, and even a little discussion of exactly what is the goal: 100% renewable, 100% greenhouse gas emission free, 100% net carbon free. Those aren't all exactly the same, and it's important. Like I said, everything that you look at gets more complicated. So, if you will, Reiko.
Thank you, Dave. So with the 100% renewables, this has never been done at a utility of our scale. And what you hear in the news frequently are other agencies like Google, for instance, that has 100% renewables. Well, theirs is a renewable match, which means for every megawatt hour of energy they consume in their facilities, they will purchase renewable energy. That won't work for DWP because of the balancing authority. We have the obligation in real time to match our demand with our supply, and that creates additional challenges as we try to meet the 100% renewables. So there are a number of areas that we have to look at, and these are all key areas. We have a list here, but there are many more that aren't, we think about more as we go along. What we will commit to is, first and foremost, safe and reliable electric service, competitive electric rates consistent with sound business principles, responsible environmental stewardship, and meeting and exceeding all regulatory mandates. When we look at integration issues, when you have renewables with solar and wind, trying to integrate that and maintain your system reliability and frequency in real time, it becomes challenging. So we have to address that. Transmission. One of the strategies LA has been very successful in is, as we increase more and more renewables and our renewable percentages, we largely go to areas where transmission already exists. It's better for the environment, it's better use of the existing assets that we already have. Reliability standards. The Federal Energy Regulatory Commission has reliability standards that they impose on entities such as DWP because we are a balancing authority, we own transmission, and we operate transmission. So one of the categories relates to this specific area. Supply of renewables. There are very geographic areas in the country that are more susceptible for certain types of renewables than others. That's why transmission becomes so important. We also need to be looking for emerging technologies, and we need to be open to implementing those within our system, piloting those programs, and looking how well those can fit into our operations. And finally, Dave touched upon lightly the transportation electrification, looking at other industries that will have larger impacts on greenhouse gas reductions than what LA and the electric industry can do on its own. So a bit of history: when the department grew up, when LA was formed, we had generation projects within our population centers, and as populations expanded, we built more generation within the basin, and eventually population grew to such that it made more sense to build transmission and import power into serve our load. That started in the 30s with the Hoover Dam. It continued in the 70s as we did Palo Verde, we did Intermountain Power Project. So we have these big transmission lines that were built to import power into our area. One of the big challenges that California is seeing is the overgeneration. And on the graph on the left, we show the big red portion is above the stacked charts, if you will. That means there's too much energy in that red portion than what is needed to serve load. So what happens in California, we end up paying our neighbors to take the power. And let me be clear, this is not DWP. This is other California entities, the rest of the state. So the rest of the state ratepayers are paying twice for that energy. They're buying it the first time, and they're also paying their neighbors to take it. And what happens frequently when their neighbors take it, they will shut off their renewable power, curtail those plants to get California's plants. So it's becoming a big challenge. What is key is, because DWP has done such an excellent job of planning their resources, in the 70s, our crown jewel, Castaic Power Plant, the pumped hydro, was used for storage. We've been in storage for 40 years. So LA is not seeing the same problem with overgeneration. We're not paying our neighbors to take it. We are pumping it into our plant, into the hydro facilities, and shifting the use of that power when we can bring it down by gravity fed, run the turbines, and create energy when we need it. Obviously, as you get more and more renewables, higher percentages, today we are at 31%. We're not seeing this. As we go to 50%, 60%, 70%, we will, unless we can plan better for the future. The graph on the right shows the challenge. We have the green, it's the duck chart. So the overall top line is what the load is. And then if you back out the intermittency of renewables, so you back out solar and wind, because when you operate your system, you want to take all that renewable first. But that means you have to have other generation that can make up for when the sun goes down, when the sun doesn't or the wind doesn't blow, and we will have additional graphs to show. The next few graphs are very interesting to me, because this actually shows what the operational folks deal with when they try to operate our grid. A day like this, they are just couldn't be happier. These represent 2 solar farms. One is 250 megawatts, so it's a little bit higher, it's it has fixed panels, so they don't rotate with the sun. The other one's a little bit lower. It's 210 megawatts. That's the only reason why it doesn't go all the way to the top. But this has the tracking system, so they follow the sun. And what you see is you get additional generation on the shoulder hours by using those trackers. This is our typical DWP duck curve. This is us on a spring day. And what we show is we had about 50 in the afternoon when the sun goes down. So again, let me back up. The top green line, that represents our load. And then you have the line underneath it, shows when you back out the intermittent, the solar and the wind, this is what our generators have to react to. We have to have generation that in the morning, as the sun starts coming up, we can back off other generation to allow for that sun generated energy to take its place. On the left side of the graph, the tail of the duck, You see the two lines diverge. That means it's early in the morning, so we likely had some wind blowing. And then as you move into the belly of the duck, that's the solar coming up, and that's shown as a reduction in our other generation to absorb that sun. And you can see in the towards the right half of the graph, the sun starts setting. So now we have to have generation that can ramp up, that's the neck of the duck, to be able to meet that customer load in real time. And then essentially what the solar, primarily solar, has done is it shifts the peak. Historically, the utilities peak has been at 4 o'clock. Well, now we're moving later into the 6, 7, 8 o'clock hours because of that increasing renewables. And you see on the beak of the duck, the divergence of the lines. That means that we had some wind blowing. This one's interesting because this shows the difference between Nevada and California. And this is why regional diversity is important. So if you look at the green, pretty steady as the sun comes up. It's not a cloudy day. Primarily, the sun is going full blast. That's in California. If you look at the blue, you can call that the solar coaster because there's a significant amount of intermittency. You can see the sun is obscured by some clouds, and you can see the first big dip. We have two 250 megawatt solar plants in Nevada, about 50 miles apart. So when the sun or the clouds move across one, you see the big dip. That's where we lost that first. And then, a short time later, as the clouds move further, I believe it's east, we lost the second unit. So immediately we had 500 megawatts of additional generation from somewhere we had to put online to make up for that.
Is that typical?
Yes. Yes. Cloud cover. At different times of the season, more so than others. But more concerning is in the mid-afternoon or about noontime, you see the clouds went away. So now all that generation, 500 megawatts, showed up within a 15-minute time period. So we had 500 megawatts we had to come up with to make up for that lost generation as that cloud cover finished rolling through. What a mess. So this represents the same type of information, but 5 different solar projects. And you see 2 that are fairly, or 3 that are fairly straight. That's the California ones. We have 3 solar farms out the Barren Ridge that was referenced earlier in Kern County. California had an abundance of sun that day, but the other ones that are all over the board were the Nevada ones that become a challenge for our grid operators to keep that steady flow of energy. And this is 5 plants. What I want to mention is we have over 30,000 individual rooftop solars within our service territory. And part of that challenge for our grid operators is they have no visibility. These large plants they can see. But back in August 21st when we had the solar eclipse, that's when we saw all that generation that's normally behind the meter that we don't see. That shows up when their systems aren't working. That shows up as additional load that we have to provide for. So now that you've seen the 4 messy graph, the 5 solar plants, what does that mean? So this is the same day with our duck curve. And you can see, what the belly of the duck is really jagged. And so that type of the day, when you have intermittent renewables that come on and off and on and off throughout the whole day, that's where we need that flexible resources that can ramp up and ramp down very quickly, that can come online very quickly if you lose it all, so that we can maintain system reliability. I talked about the geographic diversity of various renewable projects, and there are various areas of the country that are more abundant in certain types of renewables than others. And you can see, if you want a diverse portfolio, which is what we have always advocated, whether it's solar, whether it's renewables, fuel types, transmission, batteries, diversity is good. So clearly, if we want to access these very rich renewable pockets, transmission is king and it's key.
And that is one of the reasons that the investment that we made in transmission years ago is so important, because it does reach a number of the western states, and we can tap that solar, that geothermal. When you start getting into the Midwest and the wind, you get to a point where it's too far to transmit the energy. But we can get up to the north, Wyoming, some of those areas. You can see hydro, BC. My guess is we'll eventually be in 8 to 10 states in several decades pulling resources. But it's also, if we use our own transmission that we've already invested in, maintain, and sometimes have to go through upgrades, it's a lot less expensive. And I will tell you, because we are, the second biggest city in the U.S., there are transmission companies that see us as basically somebody to come to help partner with their facilities. And if we need transmission, we'll definitely look at it. But if we don't need transmission, we don't want to be the catalyst for somebody's project that we don't really need. And we do get approached again by a number of different transmission companies that really want us to help give the load that allows them to get financing and move their transmission projects forward.
I think if you recall, some of the commissioners received a recent letter from the chair of the CEC, Chair Weisenmiller, as well as the president of the PUC, President Picker, requesting that DWP become engaged in the transmission planning process through the California Independent System Operator to look at the Pacific DC intertie, which runs from like that BC Hydro down to the LA area. So we're involved in that process. It's it will be costly, and for us, the key is what is our ratepayer benefit. If we don't see the need for additional resources there, or load growth that would require building up that transmission, we're going to look for that. What's the benefit and burden on that? The state obviously has that overgeneration problem we looked at. They are looking at northern states on the West Coast to help them solve that. That may not align with some of the what's important to DWP, but we are engaged in that stakeholder process to make sure that we're part of that conversation.
Have we sent any response so far on that, letting them know we're working on it, or telling them
yes,
what you just said?
Yes, and in addition, I also reached out to the chief staffer for the Chair Weisenmiller to let him know that we are very much engaged, and also made sure he had our contact information, so he feels very comfortable reaching out.
Good.
And
excuse me,
Go ahead.
did we get a copy of that response, Mel?
I did. I don't think I did. But
I don't think I did either.
Okay, let me circle back on that.
Thank you.
Okay, the other, sometimes it's very basic. Looking at that line from California up to Washington, they peak in the winter, we peak in the summer. So the whole idea is if we can send power up to Washington in the winter, because we've got plenty of it, because we plan for the hottest day in the summer, basically, and then they can send us some in the summer, it's mutually beneficial and reduces investment and reduces impact on the environment. So it's a lot of this is all very complicated, but also based just on basic common sense. That's a great idea somebody years ago started developing and considering.
And it's one thing that we very much look at as we plan into the future. We need to look at the existing assets we have, and to the extent we have excess capacity, we need to be optimizing that. When we talk about transmission constraints, so we have a number of transmission lines that bring power into the LA Basin. Many of these facilities are 50, 60, 70, 80 years old. So we recognize that there is a need to upgrade and refresh them, but it's not without challenges. This process, Dave and I both have experience on one that's well over 15 years and still has not turned a single shovelful of dirt. So there are a lot of NIMBY issues and environmental permitting reviews, et cetera, right-of-way acquisitions that are required for upgrades.
We included this specifically because it's extremely important. In order to have reliability, we need several different transmission lines going into an area. And there's parts of the city, and again, it's the development decades ago, where there's essentially only one main path in, and there's a local power plant that's also operating. And if that local path coming in goes down, The local generating unit provides that backup. In order to eliminate those local generating units, we have got to improve these transmission avenues and import capabilities, and in some instances upgrade the lines, make them be able to carry more load. In some instances, build duplicate lines. And I do want to stress what Reiko said. She and I have an experience 15 years ago to put a line in that was 6 miles long. 3 miles fronted a freeway, 3 miles went immediately adjacent to an existing transmission line. That project is, so again, six miles only, is still up in Sacramento, going through reviews, lawsuits, and it was a basic, most benign line, if you will, that it wasn't next to residential customers or anything, and the process takes forever. They recognized this in Sacramento and did about 5 years ago try to look at some of the CEQA efforts, but we have staff already looking at these pathways so that we can move the process forward, but it will be 20 years if we follow the experience of most organizations in California before those lines could even be considered to be constructed. So it is one of those areas that we are starting now, but that takes ages to get to the point. And again, very important, to get to 100% renewables, we have to have those lines. If we don't have those lines, we'll never get to 100% renewables without some technology that hasn't yet been developed. And I know Reiko will touch on that later.
Excuse me, Dave, are those new lines or these existing lines that need to be upgraded?
They're existing lines that need to be upgraded in most instances.
Yes. Part of the challenge as LA has grown up, you can see on the left, we had right away on a corridor that we built transmission. And as the city has grown, urban development has come up right up until to the line of right away. So these are the types of transmission that we have that require upgrades, and you can see the challenge because there isn't enough right-of-way to where you can build the new one adjacent to it so that you don't have to be without power as you build that. And as the new one's commissioned, you can take the old one down or you can keep both so you have redundancy. But you can't upgrade it while it's still operating. So that's our challenge.
And you can't undergrounding it. Some people say, well, just underground it. You can't underground a line of that size or multiple lines of that size in that width of a right-of-way. Excuse me.
And on the right-hand side, we have a transmission line that traverses the Santa Monica Mountains, and you can imagine the challenge of getting that one upgraded. So,
the photo on the left that shows the transmission line in a residential area.
Yes.
What are the impacts, if any, on the residents that are within the boundary or the parameter of this transmission line?
From operating the transmission with the residents right there?
Well,
do you mean what often comes is the challenge is EMF studies, which is electromagnetic field.
Yes.
That there are no studies that show, and for when I say this, there'll be 100 people that will come in and completely say I'm wrong, that show a connection between transmission lines and health impacts to customers.
That's my question.
Yeah, there was a study in Holland 15 years ago that initially said, and then they went back and reviewed the study and found out it was flawed. But every other study, and there have been a multitude of studies, show that there aren't the health impacts. Mostly people don't like that's a visual impact, and nobody would want that in their backyard, just bluntly. But most people will challenge it based upon EMF, and again, study after study shows there isn't a connection with that and any health impacts.
And is there any problem with operating the transmission because you're in a residential area?
So I think the biggest problem is probably the vegetation and trying to manage the growth of palm fronds. I'll let Andy talk about that with his experience.
Yeah, I mean, historically, we've never had an issue with transmission causing a problem. The bigger risk we've ran into is a couple times we've had a plane crash into one of our lines and damage it. But transmission itself has not caused that kind of problem. Again, we are restricted with the vegetation management, and we have to have certain clearances between trees and the ground. And but no, we've never had that issue with our transmission lines. Nor really has any other utility.
Dave and Reiko, on the lines that aren't necessarily in basin, but the ones that extend outside that we have ownership of, are there issues that we've looked into in terms of grid resilience for transmission lines that might be susceptible to heat impacts and the greater increase of fires that we're seeing, and the potential cost that's uninsured that we are taking the risk on by not having upgraded or cleared areas of the million trees that are dead on the ground that serve as greater fuel.
So what I will say about that, LA's system itself has only a significantly smaller portion of forest areas, densely forest areas, than the other utilities within the state that have been severely impacted by wildfires and other events. We do have some. Our challenge there is frequently it's other agency land, so the ability to get in and get permission to maintain those has been a challenge. We are working on legislation to help fix that, but we've been working on that for a number of years.
When I was in DC a couple months ago, I raised this as a major issue with all of the elected officials that we met with. We are making requests to go in and clean the vegetation out and prune it out and remove it. And it's taking sometimes years to get that authorization when it should take months. It's mostly a staffing issue with the federal government. And what we're pushing for is a blanket authorization. And also the ability to look wider. Right now there's about an 80-foot clearance. And if you think about it, there are trees that grow 20 and 30 feet a year, their branches do. And so we'd like to look at getting that to a 200 wide clearance, so that when there's major winds or major storm issues, that there'll be enough room for the wires to blow. And people might not know is as more energy flows down a transmission line, it sags more. The energy's heavy. And when it sags more, it can blow farther back and forth, hit a tree and cause a fire. We're not doing this on our own. We're working with all of the large utilities in the state, because all of us face the same issue. If we have a fire, it's devastating to homeowners who lose their homes. There can be loss of life. And frankly, this issue isn't difficult to get in there and fix. We've got to get somehow through this bureaucracy of agencies pointing fingers at each other and not doing what's in the best interest of the public, which is clearing those lines. Maybe when somebody wants to talk whether the line should be there or not, way longer discussion. We need to clear those lines now or they're at risk for fire. So we are working with PG&E, SCE, Pacific Gas and Electric, San Diego Gas and Electric, and Sacramento Municipal Utilities District to try and move this forward.
Thank you.
I talked earlier about the requirements we have from the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission as being a balancing authority that owns and operates transmission. 3 of those standards, and there are a number of them outside of this, relate to reserves. And we are required to carry contingency reserves, and those are reserves, firm resources that are able to step in when that sun goes away, or you lose a generator, or you lose a transmission line. And then you also have to have replacement reserves that essentially replace the contingency reserves. And that equates to, that's about 10% of what your load would be. In addition to that, because we have intermittent resources, and there's also a flexible reserve requirement. So we have to have reserves that can react quickly with quick ramp-ups, ramp down, quick startups, multiple times a day. There are a number of resources that do not qualify for reserve resources. That would be your solar, wind, and geothermal. There are resources that do qualify, which would be hydro plants such as Hoover, and also pumped hydro such as Castaic, as well as gas-fired generation and your batteries if they're charged. These are significant requirements because the penalties for non-compliance, because as a balancing authority with the interconnected grid, if LA does something inappropriately that jeopardizes reliability, it can cascade and spread throughout the whole Western interconnect. So it's important that these standards be maintained. The fines can be $1 million a day per violation.
Rico, excuse me. Why? It's another discussion, but can you answer in a sentence why geothermal does not qualify as reserve? I've been to Iceland. I've been to a number of geothermal plants, and they ramp up and they ramp down.
It's like contingency reserves has to be able to go from cold plant to full load within 10 minutes.
Don't the binary plants have that capability now, or is it just the old plants, or what is it just in?
None of the plants we have today that we have resource commitments with provide that. We do have some flexibility in the ramping of those, but not to qualify for reserves.
So it has more to do with the minutes of ramping and not
how
to do with
quickly
the
you can
actual
respond.
resource.
They want resources that they can count on as being able to respond when there is a contingency on your system. So I want to talk about a little bit about when we plan for our system. So these bars represent in 2017 January through December, and it's the peak load for that month. And of course, when we plan our system, we plan for the peaks, and you'll see two needle nose bars in August and September. This does not include the contingency reserves, replacement reserves, flexible reserves that are required on top of this. So when we plan for those needle nose peaks, obviously if you get resources, you run a line across the top, there are a number of months when you have too much. And essentially that's what California is dealing with, their overgeneration and trying to figure out what do they do with that additional energy. And we're trying to plan very carefully so that we don't end up with a bunch, we don't want to import California's problems here, nor do we want to actively plan to have to deal with that same issue. So we're looking at how we can mitigate that challenge going into the future. So how are we doing? So if we look at 2016, we were 29% RPS. That sounds great, right? Because if you look at 2016, we were at 6%. So we've gone up 23% over that 10 years. That's a significant increase. But let's look and see what that means. So on a low demand day in the middle of spring in 2016, we had 74% renewables. Great, right? But then when we look at peak, because you have to plan for your peak days, and August 31st when we hit our peak, we only had 15% renewables. And typically when you hit a peak, we have over 1,000 megawatts of wind, but typically your wind isn't blowing. That's why you're hitting peak temperatures. So to get an additional 85% renewables to show the right side of the graph is 100%, what that does to your costs and your excess on the springtime, the low demand days, is significant.
Reiko, sorry, excuse me, I have a question. Does this also accounts any energy storage projects that we have currently?
We do not have them currently online, no, so they do not.
What about energy efficiency?
Energy efficiency is included because it's a reduction of your demand. So on that peak day that we just looked at, here's the breakdown of the resources that served the load on that day. Again, we were 15% RPS. For base load units, we had natural gas, coal, and nuclear that carried our system. We had a small amount, solar was going full blast. We had every renewable resource we could available running. And we had to buy a number of resources on the market. So if you look at the green, that's what we have that's renewable, but there's a significant amount that would require replacement to get to that 100%. So we looked at one hypothetical situation. We said on that peak day, let's say we served it all with solar and batteries alone. although this does show our base load with the nuclear because that is GHG free. So the green at the bottom is the resources we had running that day. The lighter green with the big mountain in the middle would be the additional solar we would have to buy. And you can see there's a significant amount that's above our load line as well as the dotted line that shows with reserves. That is the amount that would go into storage that would be used to serve the green patterned area on the shoulder hours. And so essentially,
do we have sufficient storage to do that?
No. So if you look at the chart in the upper, the solar, we had 1,200 megawatts. We would need another almost 19,000 megawatts to fill this. On the 4-hour battery, go ahead.
But this scenario is if it was today.
Yes, yes. So a
we,
4-hour.
yet we haven't add up the projects that we have coming up in the future on storage and other technologies. Yeah.
Correct.
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 So don't call the fire yet, guys.
So we don't. So if we look at a 4-hour battery, which is the technology available today, if you wanted an 8-hour battery, you would essentially double the footprint. If you wanted 12, you would triple it, etc. So for a 4-hour battery, we would need 13,000 megawatts of storage. And to put that in perspective, there is, as of 2017, 783 megawatts in the country. So when we talk about storage, there are a number of issues that we're concerned about or that we think about as we try to figure out what that portfolio is in the future. So storage can be very good for optimizing your power resources. It can help mitigate that volatility of renewables. It can help us shift power. We have those needle node peaks. We can do storage and reduce the peak. We can use them for grid services to help keep the grid reliable. We are concerned with the battery, the footprint of fields and fields of batteries to get to that level you would need. Also the replacement cycle. When you talk about a battery being effective for 7 to 10 years, if you look at, to put it in perspective, Castaic, that's 40 years old.
Yeah.
We were to replace those batteries 4 to 5 times. If you look at, for instance, Hoover, if you could turn that into a pump storage, Hoover is an 80-year-old power plant. The fields of batteries you would have to replace over that plant's life cycle, and they've just extended it an additional 50 years. So what isn't being addressed is when we have these fields and fields of batteries, decommissioning costs, who's going to pay for that? There isn't an effective recycling program to date for the hazardous materials that are in those batteries as you break them down. Is there a fire safety element with that? When you have a fire in your neighbor's home that happens to have batteries, what happens to the hazardous? What is the air quality impacts around you as that fire just has to burn out?
Reiko, but wouldn't you say that that's also the case for a fire plant, for a fossil fuel fire plant? Is it the same case? Wouldn't you agree that it takes the same process?
To decommission?
Yeah. And it's costly and it's
Yes.
timely?
Yes, absolutely valid point, but you would do that once every 50, 100 years versus every 7 or 8, 9 years. So we do, the environmental impact is important, and it is important that you look at the life cycle and end of life process, and that's thought about. So we need to make sure that we're not creating another nuclear fuel issue where when that nuclear fuel was popular, it was too cheap to meter. We were going to just go big, go strong on nuclear. Well, now we're dealing with the after effects, and what do you do with that disposal of the hazardous waste?
I think one of the most important things on this slide is that storage, like our power supply, needs to be considered as a portfolio of different storage resources. We absolutely have to support batteries and support the technology and support the evolution, because over time, the replacement cycle would likely go to 10 years and 15 years and a little bit longer. We do need to be 100% inclusive as we look at the cost of developing, recycling, because there's precious metals, there's hazardous materials that you ought to be able to reuse. So we've got to support battery storage so that we help that industry evolve and get better. I will tell you what I don't want to see happen is that we over-invest in a narrow section of storage, which is only batteries as they exist today, and that we then get stuck with that technology for decades at too high a level. We should be looking at all the other ways we can do that. And frankly, I think, again, as Californians, we need to look at the potential of a few large pump storage projects in our state, which in my opinion, and again, this is just my opinion, the environmental impacts of a few large pump storage projects are probably much lower over time than the environmental impacts of a significant number of batteries. Again, a portfolio of different storage entities. You did talk a little about fire. There isn't yet a complete awareness on how you put out the fires if a battery starts fire. And there was one in Hawaii a few years ago, caught fire, and they tried to put it out, and they just finally had to let it burn out over 4 or 5 days because the fire department, as of yet, didn't have the exact way they could put it out. That was remote. As we look at smaller batteries in a more populated area, they could be put out faster. But the entire technology of gigantic escalation in batteries, we've got to make sure we have the resources to protect public safety. But again, my main point that I think of it with storage is we got to look at a portfolio of storage opportunities.
So battery storage, similar to solar, has seen significant price decreases over the last 4 or 5 years. We also anticipate that will continue to where, ultimately the battery packs themselves will be in the $100 per kilowatt hour range. But we also have to be cognizant that's only one piece of the price of batteries. You also have other equipment and installation costs. So in reality, the battery pack themselves is 50% or less of the overall installed cost. One of the areas we are concentrating on is the overall greenhouse gas reduction. And when we look at electrification of transportation, if we look at our portfolio that existed in 2016, where we had 27% RPS, 29% RPS. If you converted the gasoline and diesel passenger vehicles to electric vehicles, there would be a 3-to-1 savings in greenhouse gases. That's why it's so important, once you get to higher levels of renewable resources, to get the major decrease in greenhouse gases. It's going to require other industry sectors to also participate. If you take that same analysis and you look in 2026 when we have a 50% RPS and you convert today's gasoline diesel passenger vehicles, it's a 5-to-1 savings as your portfolio becomes more and more renewable.
This is really important, in my opinion. This is where we're starting to branch out into, we've got to look at this comprehensively, both in LA and as a state especially. When we look at a sector, going from 75% renewables to 100% just in the power sector band, there's going to be a cost. And the reduction in greenhouse gas emissions is going to be X dollars per pound, whatever the ratio is. If we can be simultaneously looking at how we pull those cars off the road now, the greenhouse gas emissions will be significantly reduced at a much faster speed. And not only greenhouse gas emissions, which help globally, like shutting down our coal plants were wonderful for greenhouse gas emission reductions. They didn't do anything for the local air quality. The thing with transitioning vehicles, it is going to have real benefits for greenhouse gas emissions, but real benefits for local emissions. And one of the students had mentioned the truck transportation. If we can get some of those transportation corridors significantly electrified, it's going to be a great help. But our load is going to go up by 50%. So we need to start putting this all together, looking at this comprehensively. We are, again, working with Edison, and we're working with the other large utilities in the state. And in fact, at some point in the future, the entire West Coast transportation corridor, so that we look at not just doing the right thing in the power sector, but doing the right thing across all emissions. Again, my goal, get as greenhouse gas emissions, local emissions reduced as quickly as possible at the lowest price possible while continuing to get to 100% renewable energy. But those approaches and those efforts can prioritize, reprioritize, and need to be continually reviewed so that we're getting the best bang for our buck and improving the environment as fast as we can. And it's not regulatory approaches gives you rules. With the transportation sector, we don't have as much control, and we've got to figure out, as I say, how to go from the stick to the carrot, and it's a big change, and we're doing some of that through rebates. We're doing that through rebates for used electric vehicles, how to bring some of those electric vehicles to middle and lower income customers. But again, I haven't seen this in Sacramento to any extent that it needs to be, so we start looking at this more globally instead of narrowly where we're just talking about the power sector. Because frankly, if just bluntly, if we increase our load by 50%, we cannot do that in renewables alone and reach what's being proposed, which 2045, 2050, you just can't get there. And some of those are transmission constraints. But again, we're paying a lot for a minor reduction where maybe as a society we're looking at a larger breadth. We can get much greater environmental benefits by looking at things comprehensively.
I'm sorry, Mr. General Manager. I think it's important. I agree with you that we need a much more regional, state, and regional as the West Coast on our on our transportation in general. And I think the mayor's office has set some really exciting goals to get there, and I think we're also very committed to the electrification of our transportation system. I'm worried that that as we increase the use of electric vehicles, they're going to be powered by natural gas. And I think that this is why this study is so important. Because I think as we ask folks to go electric, and we have very good programs, even now for used cars, which I think is great, we can afford to power those with non-renewables. Because that's just, that would be just ironic almost, like you can't. So I think that the first step that LA had was to, again, divest from coal, which some view this as something that didn't really bring any benefits on pollution here. But divesting from coal, at least from one of our coal plants, took off 6 million cars off the road. And I think that it opened the possibilities for LA for the electrification of transportation and for also for us to even do this study. Because I think without having the challenge and even responding to the request of the city council to even do this study, I don't know if we will be here. So I think that keep in mind that even with equity metrics, which it really trying to benefit those that are probably most affected by pollution and that have lower penetration of renewables and electrification of transportation, I think we really need to look at, and I'm sure you're going to probably talk about it in the rest of your presentation, that we cannot power these cars and utilize battery storage at the expense of non-renewables in other places. I think we need to do better.
So one of the things with renewables, with transportation in the future with electric vehicles is the ability to use the storage, that vehicle to grid, and use that to shave the peaks and more effective use and a better capacity factor of our overall system that reduces the overall need for generation, period. So when we look at the electrification of the transportation system, there are about 3.5 million cars in LA. And we looked at one of our scenarios is, in our IRP is, what if we electrified all of those? What would the impact be on our load? And the challenge there is a significant amount of uncertainty. How much adoption you will have, what'll that do to your load, how much do you, of those resources do you procure so that you're not buying too many and over procuring at the detriment of your ratepayers. So we do see a significant amount of load growth, up to 50% if we had a 100% adoption, but this will be, stay tuned for the 11 o'clock news as we move forward on implementing and adopting the electric vehicle and how that those projections and the deployment of the chargers and folks convert to this new form of transportation and what that impact is to the electric utility and our resource procurement.
Rico, are those numbers for the state, the county, or the city, or are they just estimates?
I believe those are the
For
city.
electric vehicles.
The city.
So there's 62,000 registered electric vehicles in the city right now.
Okay.
Are you sure?
Well, staff put this together, so I would have to find out who got the numbers.
I just want to make sure we're clear that if it's not the city,
Yeah.
just clarify it.
Yes.
Because I have some different numbers from DMV.
So when we look at our strategy to increase our renewables, we see transmission as one of the key elements to be able to be successful, to reach closer and closer levels and even reach the 100%. It is important that we strategically look at what assets we have available, where they're located, what resources we can put on the other end of those lines, and more use those, optimize the use of those assets. There are two major transmission arteries that LA has. That's the Pacific DC intertie that runs from Oregon, Washington down to Southern California. LA operates the southern end of that line. LA is also the operating agent for the southern transmission system that runs from Utah at our Intermountain Generating Station through Southern California. That site also has 300 megawatts of wind interconnected. There's interconnection requests for 2,000 megawatts of solar. And we're also, one thing we didn't talk about when we talk about a diverse supply of storage, we're looking at compressed air energy storage at that facility. They have the perfect geological formations for that type of resource, so it is something we are exploring. So we need to be considering the upgrades of those critical transmission assets we have, as well as promoting and supplementing the distributed energy resources.
So I wanted to say we're doing this responsibly. We are looking at this, what's the right thing to do, what's the cost impacts, being transparent about this. Again, we have to focus on reliability. We are obligated both by federal regulation and by customer demand that we offer power on a consistent, reliable basis. So we're studying the 100% renewable energy portfolio, and I wanted to wait to this slide to chat a little about this, Commissioner Vasquez. I'd like to see that study as soon as it's done, because we need a base study, a foundation, that we start then looking at that study and say, okay, how do we go about this when we add 50% load for electrification? I want to, at the same time, be looking at new technologies. It just seems to me, if there's two vehicles at a household, whether they own them or whether they're in some sort of shared electric vehicle, it just seems kind of incredible to me to think we might have those two electric storage facilities and vehicles and a separate stationary electric, basically a battery at the home, when it sure seems that maybe we can utilize all these electric vehicles, and this has been talked about again for decades, as both a storage, and we can pull from those electric vehicles when you've got several million of them around throughout the region. You sure ought to be including those as energy storage facilities. And then deciding you reduce, so just a fact, you reduce emissions substantially by taking a gas-powered vehicle to a natural gas vehicle, and then another substantial reduction by taking it to 100% renewable. We've got to talk about that timing, and that needs to be studied, and that needs to come from a review and then discussed at a board like this. We don't have that information yet, but again, it's part of the overall, how do we have the fastest and best environmental benefit in the shortest amount of time. All of these things require study and investigation and a navigation through this transmission period. We have to go several decades till we get to having the ability to have those renewable resources developed, transmitted to our system, and transmitted through all of our customers. I would love to see every rooftop in LA with solar on top of it. It would still not be enough, nearly enough. You can go, it's so interesting, if you look down at any of the apartments, the apartment buildings are covered with solar energy, either water heating or electricity, and that's enough for their common areas, but we do have to have the capability of very large solar systems outside our service territory that are then transmitted in, as well as gas, geothermal, and everything else. We've got to really look at what the kilowatt hour cost is. Again, we've got to be able to afford that across all sectors. And we've got to look at the energy storage. Again, we've got to look at batteries. We've got to look at helping batteries improve. We've got to look at pump storage. We can't have a no to every single pump storage project, which is kind of what's come out now, because over the long run, we've got to look at that environmental impact versus 3, 5, 10 different iterations of battery replacements and the impacts. Again, we don't have all this information. It's just we've got to look at this globally beyond LADWP, but we can start here and make the strategic decisions that we want to over time to reduce greenhouse gases as quickly and cost effectively as possible, and look at how we reduce the local emissions as well from all of our generating resources. Again, this is an overview of what could be, a week-long discussion, and we still would only scratch the surface. But I'd like to be making these presentations on an ongoing basis. I think it brings the information to the board and staff, but it brings transparency to our customers. It says, we're looking at this and we want to share it with you. I would like to see this over time shared with our customers, maybe in a little more brief presentation. But everyone is interested in where we're going, and we want to get. We need to aspire high, and move forward with common sense. So with that, I don't have anything else.
I have a few comments. Thank you, David. I think I appreciate you putting the effort to continue bringing back this conversation. I think the city is very excited to see this study going forward. The mayor is definitely very interested to see this. I'm personally very interested in seeing it. I think a couple of things that I would like to see on the next presentation is I participate on the 100% renewable study and the working group and the advisory group, I believe is the official name. We need to get that information also included in this presentation. I want to see the timeline. I know the timeline, but I think the folks that are here and maybe the ones that are watching on the live stream or on TV and channel 3035 might not know, because the study group is exciting. It's pretty diverse at this point. A lot of people want to participate, and we want to keep, the folks that we have been working with since the beginning. We want to keep them engaged. It's hard to include new folks on the mix. I think it's important, but I understand that, to try to get a cohesive idea where we're at, we kind of need a comprehensive group that is consistent. But so then it leaves us with this space for folks to know what's going on in that group. So I definitely want to see the timeline, which I have seen it, and I think Mr. Montag, he's been very good at facilitating those meetings and sharing that. I want to see the community engagement being more robust. Again, I every time I talk about the 100% and all the studies that we're doing and all the amazing work that the board is doing, more people want to come on board. Universities want to come on board, other groups. So I want to see how we can kind of integrate new people as we continue with the folks that are more veterans, let's say, that have been in the group from the beginning. We have a city council resolution that was authored by Bunning, Krekorian, Wesson, and Koretz. asking the ratepayer to also include an analysis on the scenarios, to use the Cal Enviro screen, which I think we have our very own equity metric to do that. But what I'm saying is, and we have other environmental justice, asks from the council. I think this is really good explanation of where we're at and our challenges, but I want to see where we're going, and I want to see where the study is. And I know that there's going to be some preliminary results in 2019. When 2018, we should at least see the timeline, and we should at least see what are the milestones to get there included in this presentation. So I will ask you to please, on the next presentation that you bring about the 100%, walk me through how they are in the process. I would love to see somebody from NREL at some point where you see it pertinent to come in and explain what the process that they're using and where they're at. Maybe they don't need to reveal their fundings because I don't think they have it. They're doing all the modeling as we speak. But I think it will be important for stakeholders and folks to also see, because at the end of the day, we have commissioned them to do this study, and I think it will be excellent if they can also come to present. I want to congratulate you and commend you, because this is no easy task. And as someone that couldn't see this moving faster, I also appreciate you bringing the challenges that we have and all of the considerations that we need to, at DWP, encounter to make sure that this is done responsibly and in a manner that it's not going to affect, our customers in a great way with their rates. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Other comments or questions from commissioners or Mr. Ratepayer Advocate? I see.
I had a
Oh, wait.
question before he does, if I could.
You want to jump him?
Actually, yeah, I'd love. Won't respond. Okay. Great work, Reiko. I know that you spent a lot of time with me trying to educate me on exactly how this works, all the different plants in, Scattergood, Valley, Haynes, blah, 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 the different megawatts, capacity factors, KVs, MWs, MWHRs, and everything that he took me back to my engineering. That's why I'm not an engineer, even though I studied engineering. But I have a couple of, sort of not really uninformed policymaker questions, but just basic questions. So excuse me if they're not as sophisticated as your presentation was. First, you mentioned there are 30,000 rooftops. How many megawatts is that?
I believe it's
represent?
about 230.
So we only have 230 megawatts
Rooftop,
of
local.
solar total rooftops.
Yes, within
So when you're
basin.
talking about ramping up and down.
So
of
we have 230 rooftop. We have about, I think it's 1,200 megawatt utility scale.
I understand.
Okay.
I was asking about the rooftops
Yes.
because you made the point about rooftops in connection with the.
Yes.
And is that program going to double? Where's that going to go? I mean, it costs more. There are grid resilience benefits and possible reliability benefits that haven't really are difficult to monetize. But where does that go?
So
We
I
just
believe the
continue with the
IRP,
FIT or what?
I think the IRP has 900 megawatts of in-basin solar by 2036.
Mhm.
So that'll be a combination. We have not come forward with breaking it down to FIT, NEM, community yet.
Okay. Well, I'm hoping that, and Ann also, just wanted to thank her. She spent a couple hours with me on the budget last week, and I'm expecting that we're going to see kind of shared solar with timeframes so that we can reboot it, because it's not, right, Ellison? It's not moving as quickly. We tried some things, and we're going to move that along. But thanks for the answer on that. The second thing is transmit capital budget. I think it's really important to get the ratepayer advocate and the commissioners who care to look at it, the 10-year capital budget, not just for transmission, but also specifically for our planned cap under whatever the IRP is, for what the capital expenses over the next 10 years that includes our planned expense for repowering and additional gas. Because what I heard from the public today, they're talking about a legitimate question that was raised a year ago, which was an investment of 600, 700, 800 million, up to $1 billion in gas. And I understand the importance of it. I mean, the importance of it we get from staff and from you on the reliability end. I don't think that there's any question about that. But what I think that it's important, just for disclosure purposes, is what are the numbers over the next 10 years that DWP actually has on its books, even though we're not being asked to approve a budget for the next 10 years. I think it's important for transparency to put it out there to the public what we have got planned under our capital budget investment. Because I found that the investment that we're talking about, transmission, I don't increase. I don't know how external this is, but it's very significant, and there's a lot of planning that goes into it, and we need it. And that's the basic infrastructure that I think that the ratepayers want. They want a return on, and we're going to make the return on investment worth it to the ratepayers to make sure that the system has the necessary reliability, resilience, and capacity to handle this. As you said, Dave, the next 5 years are going to have more changes than the past 50. Yeah. And that's something I think it's important to know for the ratepayers. How much is it going to cost? And if rates are going to go up because of this, not necessarily rates, but we're trying to, if the costs are somehow going to go up, the fixed costs are somehow going to go up, they're going to have to be shared in a certain way. And I think that how that looks projection-wise will be a good thing to know. So my specific request is the 10-year capital, if I could have it, and if the ratepayer advocate could have it, before the final budget is brought to us on transmission and the other capital investments, like the major capital investments, like the planned gas, et cetera. For storage, I understand. It seems like the technology is changing every few months. So how do you plan that? You can just pick a couple of scenarios and plan. The other thing that I think you could improve on a little is just to let us as policymakers understand the risk, quantify the risk a little more, because I think that you guys you're making decisions and you're bringing them to us. I think there are major risks in renewables. Okay, and so on the one hand we have, 100% now, keep it in the ground, everything else. On the other, we have, well, let's just make a belt and suspenders reliable system and burn as much natural gas as we need to, and we're in the middle. And so I think that the Commission could benefit, really. The McKinsey study that was done on Germany on cognitive bias, on renewables, how some German utilities ended up going too hard renewables, and I think that perhaps bringing it back before the Commission in the next few months, and you can cover cognitive bias in policy-making, decision-making. You can cover it across the board on gender equity and unconscious bias. But I think that cognitive bias in decision-making, especially on some of these issues, is important for us as policymakers to understand and check ourselves on our blind spots, where we might think that renewables are great, but we need to look at making sure that we're not being blind spotted going that way on the one hand. On the other, I think I really think that it's important to quantify some of these costs, because if the ratepayers want to pay for it, and they want all renewables, then we should let them know how much it costs, and not just, oh, it's going to cost a lot, and not just comparing batteries to nuclear. That we need to come up with some more realistic, I'm not a chemist, but I know about recycling, about recycling metals, and we're not dealing with nuclear material here.
Right.
We are dealing with recyclable materials, and I really appreciate bringing the battery, having the costs on recycling batteries right now, and what it might be projected in the future is something that needs to be embedded in, whether it's the capex or opex, I'm not sure, but whether you amortize it over your depreciable life or you do it, just bang in 1 year. It's something that needs to be, every time we talk about batteries, we need to know about those costs. So I'm not coming down on either side or one side or the other here. What I'm trying to do is spot some issues that I think would be really helpful for the commission as policymakers to monetize, get some of these numbers down. On page, so that was the recycling batteries. On page 23, the GHG part, what is the monetary benefit of the greenhouse gas? We know what the health benefits, environmental benefits are, but are we getting any money for this? Are the ratepayers getting any money for this? Or, I'm asking that almost rhetorically because I know that we're getting something by way of credits from the Energy Commission, or is this just a mandate that we're meeting?
So as part of the cap and trade program, utilities have been allocated through 2030 amount of freely allocated greenhouse gas credits, if you will. That does not include any load growth you may have from transportation. That was one of the issues we discussed with the Air Resources Board. So to the extent we can reduce the amount of fossil fuel and greenhouse gas intensive renewable or resources in our portfolio, we still have that pocket of greenhouse gas credits that we can monetize and use for the benefit of our ratepayers that are in the spirit of AB 32 and reduction of greenhouse gases. We're limited on how they can be spent. They have to be furthering the goal of reducing greenhouse gases, but we certainly can monetize those, and we have changed our strategies. We've in some of our resources such as IPP. Right now the plants at IPP run at about a 50% capacity factor. It wasn't that many years ago where they were running at 90% capacity factor. So we have freed up greenhouse gases. We are using those funds to do electrification and other projects that help reduce greenhouse gases.
It'd be helpful to me to know what the numbers are, because it's great in theory to understand that we're getting these credits and everything, but what does that mean? Does that mean that we get $500,000, or does that mean we get $500 million? And I don't need to know it now. I think it would just be good in the future to know that, because it puts it into, makes it more real, and then you can also say to the ratepayers that we're getting actually a benefit out of this, and it translates to X and X cents per kilowatt hour on your bill.
And some of the information we're allowed to share is protected. We can't release market information. I believe we'd have to check with legal that after the fact we can release information, but there are very strict regulations to protect the markets, and we are subject to those.
Projections would not be subject to those.
They
right?
are.
They would
are. They absolutely are. If you know what utilities have excess or what's coming up, it can
out in the 30 or 90 days, or you're talking about a year to 10 years.
Both. You can develop bidding strategies based on the demand and supply within the market. So we can bring that back on discussing what's we're allowed to discuss. And after the fact we can say in 2017 we had X number of excess credits that we've monetized for a value of X, and here's how we're spending those. Those are reports that go to the Air Resources Board every year.
It would be helpful, Jay, your wheels are spinning, so you understand what I'm saying. Just kind of bringing it down to a level of being pragmatic about it. It's like GHGs and credits and RECs and everything sound great, and doing something for the environment. We all want to do something for the environment, but we're policyholders for utility that we have to look after, we have to factor economic issues into our decision making.
If our customers are going to make the investment in and everything that we need to clean up the environment, we should also get the credit that and the benefits that are out in the marketplace to help reduce rates through emissions credits or whatever that are out there, but they're not currently set up so that our customers get the benefit of that. So we can bring you that, monetize that, show you, here's things we believe we need to demand legislation changes for so that our customers get the benefits for all of the investments that they're making to keep their rates as low as
Exactly.
possible.
I mean, is this something that you can share in private with the commissioners, or this is just, you can really share it in the public forum? Council.
Yeah, we are limited on various things. We have various levels of limitations. Some we could share for informational purposes with commissioners.
Okay.
Yeah, let me tell you what, I think that for the crowd that I meet with, you know, even before I came onto this commission on Saturday morning, they have a different idea of the world than some people elsewhere in the city, and it's more of a rate of return factor. And so I think that being able to express things in numbers when it comes to some of the policy issues is better if we can, to the extent that it's, so I just say that just in terms of connecting our policy with the people we're communicating it with. On the cars, going back to the cars, there's no distinction made between battery electric vehicles, plug-in or whatever. Is that all any type of plug-in, Rico, on that chart that of the electric vehicles?
I would have to get back with you.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay. And the final thing is just on the, I mentioned the shared solar. I just want to make sure that that's, we'll talk about that more on the budget, but when that comes up. But
We should be bringing you an update on shared solar at the next board meeting.
Okay, good. So for the capital budgets, those will be, is that possible? And the capital budget, 10-year capital budget on transmission and the planned generation assets?
We can provide what we have in our current model for the 10-year capital budget. Every year it gets refined based on more projects being finalized and such, but we can definitely provide what we have.
And the last thing is the once-through cooling seem to be driving everything in terms of making these repowering decisions. We paused things last year. Am I correct in assuming that we're going to pause again until next year because we have until next year to make this decision?
No.
On the investment in capital?
No. Timing-wise, because the once-through cooling regulations require or agreement with that the department negotiated have different deadlines for the different plants. The first one is 2024, and if there's no repowering of that Scattergood plant, there's no issue. If the once-through cooling study shows that that plant in particular has to be repowered at whatever level, we have to start that environmental CEQA process.
When?
Environmental. That will be this summer. So we're talking within a couple months.
That we're going to be spending money to put new gas in Scattergood?
Well, we will start the environmental review process. We won't start putting money into any repowering until the complete in-basin study is brought back and the board has an opportunity to, you would have to approve any commitment of significant resources to do any of those repowerings or
That's why I'm asking,
capital.
have we sought a waiver from the State Water Board on the once-through cooling to allow us to pause any further?
There are a number of other agencies that, and I might be getting out of my, there are a number of other agencies that have sought an extension that were denied. We have not on ours, and I believe from what internal discussions with environmental, the belief is that an extension or waiver is not possible given the current climate. So we have a deadline. If we don't have something repowered by then, we have to shut it down, and we cannot use those units with ocean water.
I would like to, because this is changing, and we are talking about one environmental group that's saying they want us to kill this. They want to follow the PUC on no more gas. You hear the message, and the PUC has decommissioned plant after plant after plant. Did Glendale decide today or not? I don't know if they did or
Not
not.
yet.
But, and I guess if we're going to go in this direction, I would like to perhaps make sure that it's, all of the environmental community understands what the trade-off is here.
We will be bringing a briefing to the board. This won't be done exclusive of board being aware.
Will this be done before the budget's here, before us to approve?
No, because the budgets will be brought forward to
May.
approve in May. won't
First
they?
meeting in May.
Yeah. It's an update, a presentation we need to make as to where we're at in the next couple months on the whole process and study that's going on that Reiko and her staff will come back and provide.
Well, it's a small part of it's not a huge part of the budget, but I think that the policy direction is big enough where maybe we can have the discussion offline, okay? About
So let me be clear too, on the,
where we're going.
on the budget, the cost for whatever repower we do with Scattergood is not in next year's budget. The construction piece and award of any.
I understand that, but
Okay.
the EIR, we all know, is, I mean, let's not try to dress it up. It's going to the direction of what the advocates were saying they didn't want us to, what they didn't want to see us do. And if we're going to do that, I want to do it with eyes wide open and full disclosure. And there are some serious other environmental issues of fish being killed and everything else that are an issue. And I think that it deserves of, an airing as to the trade-offs that we're making. And I think that you're doing an incredible job, Reiko, for trying to balance all these competing factors that are coming at you even within different communities. So I would like to have a discussion about that. Maybe it doesn't have to be in the open public but about that tension between the water and the air is what it comes down to, and whether it's possible at all to seek an additional extension, despite the fact that I know it was very hard fought over the settlement for one-through pooling. Everybody that I've talked to says there's no way in heck it can happen, but maybe times change, things change. Okay. So just a discussion before the budget's brought before us. Thanks.
Dr. Pickle.
The biggest challenge is time. The electric utility industry has a timeline that starts with the integrated resource plan that looks out 20 to 30 years with assets that sometimes last over 200 years, hydro facilities. It starts getting specific in that 10-year period when capital commitments have to be made for things like specific environmental approvals and plans. And if you get to about the 5-year period, you have to be making commitments in equipment for many kinds of generation facilities. So the dollar amounts get very specific in the 5-year time frame, at which time they go into the budget process. So it's balancing all of these things like generation facilities no less than 5 years on specific capital commitments, and transmission facilities, as the presentation covered, for reasons of law more than technology, take 10 or 15 years or more to site. So the challenge is time and making changes in that short time frame. At the other end of the scale, we have challenges with the adoption of technology. The Southern California region was a leader in the adoption of solar water heating in the 1880s. And that technology gained and then faded as cheaper ways of having hot water that didn't require the maintenance and a huge water tank over on the third floor of the house. That's one technology that's come and gone and returned. Another technology that's taken over 50 years to mature has been gas turbines. Jet engines, gas turbines, were developed in the 1940s for military purposes. They started being adopted as power plants in the 1960s, and they didn't become attractive as power plants as the technology improved until the late 1980s, early 1990s. Same is true for solar. Solar was for space only in the 60s. It didn't become economic for larger scale power plants until the last 4 years. Now, large scale desert solar is cheaper than the running cost of gas turbines. But in-basin rooftop solar is still very expensive. So we're battling the pace of technology. We're seeing substantial progress, more progress than I imagined on batteries, but it's still not close to the cost of other storage technologies. And finally, there are the trade-offs. I think it's an important part, as Commissioner Funderburk mentioned, to see trade-offs between reliability and cost, between cost and greenhouse gas reductions on some of these various strategies, so we can understand that. Some of the saddest decisions I've been made is where people have moved ahead with greenhouse gas reductions, but at tremendous cost. Some of the earlier nuclear plants were pushed ahead for subsidy with greenhouse gas costs of $300 a ton, when in fact the current market is $15 a ton. So, and those projects have gone worse than expected, so now the cost is way over $300 a ton saved. So I think it's important we come to back to the balancing of the costs versus reliability versus GHG.
Any other questions or comments on this provocative report? Hearing none. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Monthly reports, Financial Services Organization, monthly January.
The report is in your package. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer.
Any questions? RPS, I think Commissioner Vasquez wanted to ask about RPS, so we'll come back to that. Item 9, discussion with neighborhood council representatives on any neighborhood council resolution or community impact statement filed with the city clerk which relate to any agenda item listed or being considered on this agenda for the Water and Power Board.
No community impact statements or formal positions were filed by any neighborhood councils on the items on today's agenda.
Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the meeting of March 27th?
So moved.
Second, those in favor?
Aye.
They're approved. Items 11 through 24, which commissioners wish to remove any of these items from the consent calendar? Commissioner Barat.
Item 12.
Item 12.
And I have a question. Are we all going to hear item 24, or do I have to request that that be discussed?
Just a second. I guess you can request that that be discussed.
Item 24.
Okay, so 12 and 24 are pulled. You mentioned 18.
I'd like to pull 18 to have a presentation on that.
Okay, 12, 18, and 24 are pulled. Is there a motion to approve items 11, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 19, 20, 21, 22, and 23?
So
moved. Second.
Second. Those in favor?
Aye.
It's approved. They're approved. So the items left to be heard on the general agenda are 12, 18, and 24. We'll also double back to the RPS report later. Item 12, amendment to IBEW Local 18 Health and Welfare Plan Resolution number 97244, effective July 1st, 2018. Commissioner Broad.
Hello, here we are again.
Here we are again.
I would just like you to give a brief overview of this, why it's necessary, and why we have a cost of over $138 million. And specifically, I'd like to know, has anything changed with IBEW's contribution to the health and dental? Or is it just our contribution?
Okay, so back in the late 90s, the board at that time agreed to allow IBEW Local 18 to have their own health and dental plans. And through that agreement, the board agreed that the department would reimburse IBEW Local 18 for their costs based on a specific rate established on the medical side and a specific rate established on the dental side. So our reimbursements to IBEW Local 18 are based on the Kaiser family rate for the medical side and the Delta Dental family rate on the dental side. Okay.
Just to interrupt you a minute.
Sure.
It's interesting your choice of words when you say that it was agreed that the IBEW could have their own plan. Now, if they have is that really their own plan, or is it their plan financed by DWP?
It is exclusively their own plan, but we reimburse them for the cost of that plan.
Then how is it their plan?
We have no say whatsoever in terms of who they contract with, what their rates are, how they establish the minimum requirements for their specific health and dental plans. The agreement that was entered into in the 1990s was specifically that the department would just reimburse them for the cost of their plans.
No matter, in other words, if they could do their own negotiating, no matter what that comes out to, we're going to reimburse them.
Correct. We don't have any involvement or responsibility whatsoever for what they do with their health and dental carriers.
But Shannon, there's a per employee, per staff member ceiling on what?
Correct. And like I said, our obligation specifically based on that agreement is that we will reimburse up to the Kaiser family rate and the Delta family rate. That's it. So if they have costs that go above and beyond for their plans, that comes directly from the employees directly.
They pay that.
Correct. We do not pay anything in excess of those two specific subsidies that we are required to pay based on the agreement that was entered into in the 90s.
Okay, so what this says is that the rates have gone up. That's why we have to pay more? Is that basically what this is?
Well, their rates are going up, but again, Commissioner Barad, our obligation specifically is based on whatever the Kaiser family rate is and whatever the Delta family rate is. So if their plans have costs that go above and beyond what we're required to subsidize, it comes directly from the employees. Unfortunately, we don't have any say whatsoever in what they do as it relates to their negotiations with their carriers. All we have control over is in terms of the negotiations with the department carriers, which is not local 18s.
When was this last negotiated in the 1990s?
1996.
96.
Right.
And why hasn't there been any discussion of this or further negotiation since 1996?
When you mean further negotiation, do you mean having discussions with them about not having them have their own separate plan?
No. No, I mean, it just seems like, why now? Why now? 2018, are we now talking about a rate increase or our subsidy increase?
Well, the subsidy increases are based on, again, what our responsibility to them specifically is whatever Kaiser comes in with and whatever Delta Dental comes in with.
And there haven't been any changes since 1996?
No, there have been. There have been. And in fact, this year specifically, The Kaiser rate came in on the actives it shows as a decrease, not an increase. And on the Delta Dental rate, it went up a couple percentage points.
So the Kaiser and the Delta that Shannon is referring to is the department-sponsored plan threshold. So those are the maximum subsidies that any employee is going to be held to. So the Local 18 plans are Guardian for the dental and Anthem for the medical. So those plans and tiers fall under the same standard threshold of the Delta and the Kaiser family rates. So whether someone's an employee sponsored plan, department sponsored plan, or the Local 18 plan, they're still held to that same threshold subsidy. So every year annually the rates are renegotiated, and that's for the department sponsored plans. The union directly negotiates with their providers, and those rates fall under the threshold of what those subsidies are set for Kaiser and Delta Dental. And that's on an annual basis. So that's why we come to the board every year to request approval for the rates, the renewal rates.
Okay. In my opinion, it's a very difficult situation in that our board has very, very little influence and participation in negotiating the MOUs with these unions. And so in my experience, typically, we're given something like this that has already been negotiated by other key city players. And so, unfortunately, we have talked about how to negotiate on different levels relating to their health care. And I think giving an update about our last MOU might be helpful for the ratepayers so that they understand that there was some give and take. But us as commissioners have very little involvement and right to negotiate the MOUs. Would you like to give a summary of the last negotiation?
So the last
and what
round,
we won and what we lost?
So in the last round of negotiations, understanding that the negotiation before then, there was a lot of give from the unions, specifically as it relates to the fact that IBW in particular agreed to 3 years with no COLAs for their members, okay, which is pretty significant for them. Understanding that when that negotiations took place and that was the end result of what we got, we kind of knew going forward that when the next round of negotiations were going to occur, that we were not going to get the same considerations from them as it relates to no COLAs for their members going forward. You know, every time we sit down with our labor organizations and start the negotiation process, we always raise the issue of healthcare. We understand specifically the concerns that this board has as it relates to the responsibility not only to their employees but the ratepayers when it comes to the cost of our healthcare plans. We always raise that as a point of negotiations at every negotiation. Now, whether we get there or not is a different story. Unfortunately, this go around, which basically ties our hands until 2023, there were no considerations or concessions specifically on the healthcare side. Okay, we did get a number of wins for the department. Specifically, the general manager in particular wanted employee evaluations for all employees in the department, which we are moving forward with, which we have not done on the IBW side for probably a good 20 years. So that's a significant, although maybe not economic, consideration that we got, because it really does help put us in a better position to both educate our workforce as it relates to where they need to go in terms of their current job skills and where they can go in the future if they want to promote. So we're looking at this as an opportunity for both current and future career and training development for our staff, not just how they're doing on their current jobs, but what they can be doing going forward, which will help us because, as Dave has pointed out on many times, you know, we are in a situation where by 2022 specifically, 43% of our workforce is eligible to leave this building and the facilities for which we are responsible for to the ratepayers. That's about 4,200 employees out of a current 10,000. So that's huge. But yes, and you know, Commissioner Noonan has been here a long time, and she has expressed both to me personally and to us when we come to the table, the frustration she has as relates to the fact that the charter does give the board specific responsibility for the health plans. But when it comes to negotiating those contracts, both the department and the board doesn't necessarily have the level of involvement that we would all like to have when it comes to sitting down, and that's a decision that's not made by us. But we do, whenever we have an opportunity to be involved in those discussions, we do talk to the negotiators and the powers that be about us trying to get additional cost-sharing proposals on the table or plan design changes on the table that will help reduce our costs.
And what has your success been with?
Well,
talking to them?
when it comes to the cost sharing, we've gotten a small number of our employees in the department, our labor representatives, our managers, and our load dispatchers specifically are contributing towards the cost of their health care. Up to, is it 10%? 5%. 5%, okay. Obviously, we'd like to be able to have the larger group have more involvement in terms of the cost proposals. But the other thing I wanted to mention to you as well, you know, HR sits down every year with the carriers, with our consultant, and we aggressively negotiate the rates from the carriers because we understand that we have limited opportunity for any kind of cost sharing on behalf of our employees. In the 9 years that I've been over HR, we have saved the department and the ratepayers about $23.4 million. And that's just through straight negotiations. Commissioner Noonan was here in 2011 when we saved $10 million when we moved from Blue Shield to United Healthcare. And that was huge because this department had never seen that level of savings on our healthcare plans. So we are trying wherever we can within the confines that we have to reduce our costs every year we sit down with the carriers to do this.
Well, certainly this is an issue of economics, and I may not have been here as long as Commissioner Noonan. I'm not the newest, I'm not the oldest, I'm the middlest on the board. And I share in that frustration that we have part of it, but we don't have all of it. And I think we do have a responsibility to ratepayers. And so this whole thing just seems all counterintuitive to me, the way I understand your role in this. And now you said we're tied into this till 2023.
That's correct. That's the next opportunity that we're going to have to negotiate any kind of meaningful either plan design changes with the labor unions or cost sharing proposals with the
Where
labor
did that
unions.
date come from?
That's when the current contract is expiring. We have a 5-year contract with our labor organizations. And so when the contract expires in October of 2022, the next plan year for healthcare purposes would be 2022, 2023.
All right, and then if Kaiser raises its rates between now and 2023, then are we then contributing more?
We could end up contributing more, but the last 2 years in particular, Kaiser's rates have come in the negative, meaning there's been a decrease. So we're hopeful that through some of our efforts through both wellness for both our active employees and our retired employees, that we can start to see some of those costs continue to go down on a regular basis so that when we have the renewal rates coming in next year and the year to follow, they'll be as favorable as they've been the last 2 years.
Now, in 2022, when a lot of our staff retires, does that mean that the amount that we pay for retirees is going to go way up?
Not necessarily, but you raise a good point, and that is that, you know, we have a situation where we have employees, unless they leave the city or leave the department altogether, when they go to retire, it's not like we lose them in terms of our health care obligation.
I see that.
Right. So they go from their active to the retiree. Again, a lot of what drives the costs specifically for our health care plans is utilization, the cost of high cost claims, you know, people getting sick, people getting seriously sick. That kind of drives the cost more so than employees leaving or more employees being hired. So the better we can do as an employer through our healthcare providers to help our population be healthier, the greater chance we have of reducing our costs going forward.
Do the employees pay a copay?
In some of the plans, yes. And in
At
some
Kaiser.
Kaiser, they pay copays for their medications.
Only medication?
Only their
not
medication.
doctor visits?
Not doctor's
and
visits.
not x-rays?
Not x-rays.
But the rest of people who belong to Kaiser pay copays for those things.
Right. And the reason that is, Commissioner Barad, is because in order for us to change that, we needed to have been able to negotiate plan design changes where we could pass the costs on to the employees to pay for those specific visits, and we didn't get any kind of concurrence whatsoever from labor on that.
Wow. I mean, copays for CT scans, MRIs, that's a lot of money. And just to see the doctor or the specialist, you know, may only be $15, $20, $30. Blood work is $30 every time you go. So they're not paying any of that copay?
Not in Kaiser.
I just feel like we've given away the store or the hospital, whatever.
Commissioner Barat, we did jointly between DWP and the OPA a total compensation survey that was completed last year and reported to the board in January of last year. And when we looked at total compensation, including pensions and healthcare benefits and all benefits, and salaries on a classification weighted basis, that is, the one GM counts as much as one lineman. DWP was median compared to the rest of the utility industry. Both
They were what? I didn't hear.
median.
Median?
50th percentile. In comparison to the rest of the utility industry nationwide, both public and private. In particular, on the pension and benefits side, healthcare was, as I recall, and my memory may be a little rusty, 2,000 to 3,000 per year higher in healthcare, but the pension, especially in particular the new tier that we hire people into, was lousy. So the two offset each other, and that's part of the reason the overall compensation was median. There are job classifications that are paid more than the rest of the utility industry. There are job classifications that are paid less. And I'd be happy to review that study with you as it is a factor in current decisions.
Any other questions or comments on this item? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
4-1, Commissioner Barad, 3-1.
Thank
Motion
you.
carries. Thank you. 18,
So, I'm sorry.
we're going to go back to RPS.
Okay,
You want to do it now?
No, whichever
Okay,
you feel is more
we held it
pertinent.
for your return.
Thank you.
Okay. Recognition of the LADWP Professional Affiliate Group of the Society of Women Engineers as an employee organization and authorization to add the LADWP Professional Affiliate Group of the Society of Women Engineers to the list of approved payroll deductions.
Commissioners, thank you very much. Appreciate the time. We have some good news today. Just wanted to make it as brief as possible, but cover some details for you. I'm Evelyn Cortez Davis. I'm a managing water utility engineer and the assistant director of water resources.
I'm Karen Isari, manager of generating station engineering as part of the power engineering division.
So what we have for you is some information about the LADWP Society of Women Engineers, a professional affiliate group, and the opportunity that has been really afforded to us through the leadership of this board to set the priority and focus on equity issues in general and gender equity in specific. And so we certainly want to appreciate formally the board's focus on this area because it really has set the tone for the staff to be able to focus on these issues. I want to also acknowledge the enthusiastic support all around our LADWP leadership team, particularly from our general manager, Rich Harisick from Water System, Mr. Andrew Kendall, and of course Reiko Kerr, who all have given their resounding support for us to pursue this particular initiative. So I wanted to go through some background for you and then tell you a little bit about the group. First of all, who are our engineers? This is a snapshot from 2017, roughly 1,162 engineers on board for the department in all classifications. So this is roughly how it breaks down between systems. And the question, of course, is how does female representation what is the female representation within this statistic? So by system, if you look at it by system, roughly 22% of the engineers in water are female, 15% in power, and 19% in joint, for an overall percentage of female engineers at 18%. There are three very important pieces of context that we need to take into account when we look at this percentage. The first piece is the city that we serve. And so the population of the city of Los Angeles is 50% female. And as public servants, we certainly want to take into account the representation of our staff and our employees, and including all classifications, engineering being one of them, to represent the city that we serve. The second piece is how does this percentage look depending on discipline, because there are some variations. So we have broken down the gender breakdown by discipline for our engineering associates. So if you look at there's variations within the civil, electrical, mechanical, which are where the most engineers are working. There's a larger gap depending on the discipline. So for example, 25% of our civil engineers are female, but 16% of our electricals are female. So it really depends on the discipline itself. Now, how does this compare to graduating seniors across the United States? Like where are the engineering degrees being offered? This is an important piece for us to know. And so if you look at all of the engineering degrees, there's about 100,000 of them earned in the United States across all states. And if you go across, you can see the wild variation in the number of degrees that are issued by each state. The largest one is California, but still, we're roughly at 20% as a country in terms of the number of engineering degrees earned in the United States by women. So how does that compare to us? California has the largest number, and still 20% seems to be this number that as an industry we have stalled in. We have a big opportunity to bridge that gap. As a city, we have 50% female representation. As engineers throughout California and within DWP, we're roughly in the 18 to 20% range. Of course, we have the context of our own city and DWP equity initiatives, which have, again, set the tone for what we can pursue as a city. The Mayor's Executive Directive on Gender Equity in City Operations, which directs all departments to track recruitment when it comes to underrepresented classifications for women throughout, not just engineering, but throughout all of the classifications. And that's certainly something that we have been able to access data on where we are, and that's part of the story here. And then, of course, our own equity metrics initiative here, established by this board, which directs us to look at the practices in hiring and retention for areas where equity is not quite achieved. So part of the gender equity strategy, in order to be able to achieve gender equity in this particular area, is to seek out discipline-specific resources and support that are available through a variety of professional organizations, including the Society of Women Engineers. Now, Society of Women Engineers has been around since 1950. It's a global organization. It has thousands of members throughout the world, and they've established a program to partner with companies to make available through these companies the resources that they make available to their members, as long as there's an agreement signed with that company. And so a professional affiliate group is an opportunity for us to leverage those resources, and that is precisely what the staff has set out to do. The draft, we do have a framework for this group to be we have recently launched it, and we'll go over that in a moment. But the draft mission statement of the group would be to stimulate employees to achieve their full potential in their careers in engineering, science, and technology, not strictly engineering, and provide support, networking, opportunities, mentoring, and to foster, of course, a culture that recognizes and respects everyone's contributions. So the benefits of the affiliate groups for the Society of Women Engineers are to provide access to professional development, training, webinars, and other resources available to SWE members or Society of Women Engineer members, an opportunity to develop connections with engineers and other technical professionals and throughout our organization and throughout the SWE organization, and also access to outreach tools and events that the Society of Women Engineers offers. So what we really have here is the opportunity to make available to all employees, not only female engineers, but all LDWP employees, the access to these resources. If you have, for example, an employee who is the parent of an aspiring female engineer or scientist, this is something that would allow them to access the resources as well. So what we have is really a three-part strategy when it comes to the Society of Women Engineers and how we can leverage what they have to offer. Number one, support the engineers who already we have with us. We have a tremendously talented group of engineers, all 1,162 of us that are spread throughout the department, and we have an opportunity to support the one area that is underrepresented at this point, and having an active professional affiliate group is certainly one step in that direction. But that's only one step, one part of the strategy. What we have as long as we continue supporting and develop a more robust recruitment strategy, we have been extremely fortunate to have the support of Shannon Pasquale's HR team and the recruitment team under Susan Ioka that help us go onto campuses and really focus our strategy. And one of the areas that we can certainly grow in is to have a stronger, more robust presence and brand recognition at national and regional conferences of the Society of Women Engineers. We're very fortunate to have attended the national conference of the Society of Women Engineers in the fall, and Reiko was actually able to represent us there with a few of our associates, and so we were very fortunate to have that. And you see a photo here from our participation in the regional conference in Phoenix just 2 months ago. So supporting and recruiting a talented pool of engineers is certainly a critical piece of the puzzle here, but we're not going to go very far in improving the 18% as an industry or as a department if we don't start to transform. And the transformation really begins with outreach. And so how do we align all of the fabulous educational outreach efforts that already exist for the department through our communications department, through our educational, different conservation programs that have outreach components? How do we begin to align that with the principles of the Society of Women Engineers around gender equity and really representing our city with the strong, talented female engineers we already have, and encourage those little girls throughout the city to really pursue those careers in science and engineering? I think that we have a lot of opportunity to do that. So where are we? We actually surveyed our female engineers, and we got 95% interest in participating in this group. So we're very much looking forward to a successful sign-up process that we're going to be launching shortly. Our SWE affiliate group agreement was signed, and that's much credit to Tim Chung from our city attorney's office supporting us in getting all of that cleared. And we have the signature already from the Society of Women Engineers as well, so it's an executed agreement. We held an extremely successful and happy event honoring International Women's Day on March 8th. You see the photo here. We had the enthusiastic participation from both Commissioners Noonan and Vasquez, who delivered opening and closing remarks for that event, so we're very grateful for that. That event was standing room only and a lot of smiling faces all around. So we had an opportunity to launch our professional affiliate group with the presence of about half of the female engineers in the department. And the next steps will be to begin signing up members. We have some logistics and mechanics that we're working through now, and to establish our first meeting in the coming weeks. We have a couple of board actions that we're requesting, but before that, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge, in addition to our executive leadership, our Director of Engineering and Technical Services, Susan Rogani, and Wendy Yancey, our Director of Legislative and Intergovernmental Affairs, who were instrumental in making this a successful event that particular day, but have also lent a lot of guidance, and of course the guidance of RACO and our commissioners in moving forward with this. In putting together today's board requested action, Ann Santilli's team, of course, thank you very much for this. Last but certainly not least, and perhaps most importantly, our team of extremely motivated engineers who have been our core planning team for this effort, and I would like to please ask them to stand. From Power System, we have Sabi Valdez, Electrical Engineering Associate. From Water, we have Darlene Trong, Eugenia Lin, and Leah Mulat, all Civil Engineering Associates. And so if you could join me in thanking them, I would. So our board actions requested today are to direct staff to execute our SWEET Professional Affiliate Group as a recognized employee organization at the Department of Water and Power, and also to authorize our chief accounting employee to implement payroll deductions for the purpose of membership dues that will allow the group to be sustainable and put together programming throughout the year for the support activities that we're proposing.
So move. Is there a second?
I second.
I have a quick question. First of all, this is very impressive and encouraging. In terms of the percentages of women engineers, which are currently at 18, is there notable increase in more recent employees? How are we doing in terms of the outreach we're doing on college campuses like this year, for example?
So we have not yet broken the data. That's one of the questions that we looked into for overall or for water. We have some information from Power System for the NEED program.
Yeah, for the Power System, we've been implemented the NEED program in January 2013, and I have looked over the numbers and haven't really seen a significant increase. Our hiring for the last 5 years has been about 16% female representation. I think a combination of it too. Obviously, we're seeing the change with the new managers that you introduced, but like Evelyn says, we need to start focusing on the younger students in the high school, the colleges, to get them interested in this career.
That's how we move the needle.
Yeah, because right now, if only 20% of the degrees are being awarded to females,
right, our
numbers aren't really that off. We could do better, but then I think the society as a whole also needs to improve that 20% percentage.
Well, I think this organized activity can only be helpful in that regard.
Certainly right on.
Questions or comments of commissioners?
I just would like to say bravo again. I felt so honored to be invited to the event, and there was such enthusiasm and excitement. And even though we stand at 18% now, I still feel proud of that number. I have great expectations that it's going to continue increasing, but I would imagine that we have more male applicants than female applicants, because I think if you look as a whole, in general, I think there's more women majoring in engineering now than there were in the past decades. And so I think our audience will be greater, and I think that your outreach will be very substantial in increasing the percentage. of women engineers here at LADWP. But congratulations to all of you. Very impressive.
Yeah, congratulations. It was very exciting to be among all the women and for Women's Day. And I think this is a first step to the right direction, which is trying to recruit more women and for them to feel that they really have a space here at DWP where they can grow and they can be successful.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Doesn't sound like anyone's opposed. Unanimous passage of the resolution. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our final item before going to RPS and to the consent and to the closed session is item 24, resolution clarifying reporting dates for development, implementation, and results of the Equity Metrics Data Initiative and additional clarifying requests. Who's presenting this one?
Well, I think, Joe?
I don't know if there's anyone to present. Commissioner, this was a request by Commissioner Funderburg to write a resolution at the last board meeting, and so this resolution was written pursuant to Commissioner Funderburg's request and then modified by Commissioner Funderburg.
Do we have a copy of this resolution in our?
Is it at the item 24? Well, since we don't have a presentation, I have a question. So, I mean, I've been a board member now for almost a year, and would you remind me where, I'm sorry, when are we supposed to have updates required on the equity metrics in the calendar? So more or less what months are we looking at to have?
Twice a year, and we have got this scheduled for the next board meeting.
Oh, okay. So in general, it's twice a year, but it's not like, for example, in June and in January or so?
It is scheduled, and if I recall, it's
February, August.
and
Okay,
August.
February. Oh, perfect, my birthday month.
Can I just say, I'm seeing this for the first time, and one number leaps out at me, which is the number 50. It seems like we already have a lot of equity metrics. What are the 50 additional equity metrics? Are we getting to the point that we're overwhelming staff with
I think so.
requirements?
We are now at over 100 metrics, and what I would maybe ask is that we look at this as we come back every 6 months on how many we're preparing, what staff is using most, what we need to rely on most, what board believes we need most, and so that we look at a review of if we need to edit down, if we don't, if we need more, if we need to change. I think, and I think from my point, metrics, you need some that are very consistent over time, and there's probably some that change over time as well.
I guess the only reason that I raise this when it leaps out at me is I remember when we were engaging in this initially, and there was overwhelming enthusiasm on the board, and I think it's terrific that we're doing it. At that time, staff was concerned about this sort of eating up so much staff time that it was going to cut into some other important things. And I don't think we want to do that. So I just would like to have a sense of proportionality here.
Can I respond to that? Because I helped to do this. There are only 15 right now, and about 6 or 7 of them are redundant. Their power.
I thought Dave said there were 100.
No. So here's the way of break. Do you want to explain?
Oh, I just we do over 100 metrics. This would be about 65 equity, and then about low 50s.
There are 50 equity metrics, and there are 52 corporate key performance indicators. Some of the key performance indicators overlap with the equity metrics.
57,
whatever it is. So this is not doing anything that's not DWP hasn't already committed to doing on its website, which is to consider them as they drop some out and then add some in. So it's more a menu of metrics to choose from, and staff determines based on the load and everything else as to what equity metrics they will use over the next, reporting period. So it was originally 15 out of 50. There are 35 to go. Some will be, it was anticipated that some will be dropped out where there are no disparities, for instance, and others will be added. And that was the whole staging and phasing of the metrics that was contemplated a couple of years ago.
So I was just going to say, and that's great. I'd like the ability, I think, every 6 months to do just what Commissioner Funderburk said. Look at how many we have, look at what tend to be used the most, look to see if there's any additions or deletions that staff might make a recommendation and bring forward to the board, and then have the board consider. Again, because there's going to be redundancy over time.
Well,
and there might be
the way
items
this
that
reads to me, it looks like we're asking for 50 additional to be done. So you're saying it's voluntary. I think that should be clearer in the resolution.
I don't think it's voluntary. I think it's variables because those change over time.
Well, if it's not voluntary, it's not, as just described, it's not something for them to choose among. I just don't want this to become so overwhelming that staff feels that it's too burdensome and it doesn't accomplish what we want to accomplish. So could you and Bill work out the language and maybe come back next session with it?
Sure. I have a comment. I'm sorry, would you like to go first?
Yeah, I'd like to know if this includes gender equity, because I don't see the word gender anywhere. And I've been, really...
One of the 15 that we currently report on is gender equity.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I said one of the 15 that we currently report on and that we'll report on at the second meeting in April will be gender equity.
So this does not include that.
I believe it's already included.
It's already included?
Yes.
Then why doesn't it have the words gender equity in here?
Because gender is embedded in all of them. So it's not one metric.
Well, as a gender person, I don't feel embedded in this. I think that we need to specifically say that if that's one of our goals and our intent is to get women working in DWP. We've heard from the professional side, the engineers, but we really haven't heard about the women working in the field and line persons. And what are we doing to recruit those people and make them feel comfortable here? So I don't know if any of that is in here, and if it's not, then where is it? Is that separate?
I'm sorry, Commissioner Barat, can I take maybe? So, and I feel like your question speaks sometimes to the confusion about what equity metrics is, how we talk about it, how people understand it. And equity metrics have many different variables that sometimes obviously you don't see them identified per se in the resolution, but they're there. So, in a way, what you're asking is, can we add a specific language on gender? But I believe the gender language is already part of one of the 18 metrics, which one of the things that I shared around with folks that are, in the community is that this is an indicator for us to distribute the resources that we have, and not only internal, but also very external. And for example, the way that we utilize our EV, rebates and such. So it's not exclusively on gender, but it has many, many different variables also.
Thank you for that. I'm not confused. When we first started talking about equity metrics, we did not discuss gender. And that's when I said we've got to discuss gender because...
Actually, we did.
Well, not here.
In the white paper that I gave you, we did. You just didn't read it. Because the 50 equity metrics are in the white paper, and they're on the website. And so I would suggest that we have council circulate the 50 equity metrics so that people understand what that means. And they can see how gender is actually embedded, and it doesn't make any sense if you haven't read it.
Well, we talked about equity metrics in terms of communities that are underserved, and that we want everyone who are ratepayers to have the same opportunity across the city. And then specifically, I mean, I remember meetings here where we specifically talked about gender equity and the fact, I remember seeing the pie chart, that very few women are working in the field here and want to be I'm not going to say linemen, but line persons. We had someone come to the Valley Alliance of Neighborhood Councils that spoke about, I think that Neil came, and one of our members, who's a president of the Lake Balboa Neighborhood Council, said her daughter wants to be a line person, but has no idea how you apply for that. And he went over the whole thing about how you look online. First you go to the city, then you go to personnel, then you go. It was so convoluted that out of that discussion, it was very helpful that this should be on DWP's website, and it should be easier for women to apply for these jobs. So my point is that I think that this needs to be specified, that we as an organization are encouraging women to apply for jobs that are really not the traditional women jobs in DWP. I understand about engineers, but I'm talking about the other kinds of jobs. And some of the most well-paid jobs at DWP are the linemen. And we have 2 women, as I understand it, who are doing that. So my feeling is that if we don't say it, then that means we're not emphasizing it.
And I think the best way to do that would be to send the 50 equity metrics around, and that way you can see how actually lineman issue was called out. That was originally called out. The disparity was so blatantly obvious.
Yes, it was.
At the 2 years ago, 1 or 2 out of 500 women out of men. That was one of the biggest disparities, and it was the field jobs. It was all the ones that are out, and there was also procurement. Our WBE procurement is 1%. So, and that was brought up by Commissioner Noonan.
Well, one of the things that I asked for was to have some kind of a follow-up and a report as how we are recruiting women for these jobs. And also, and I remember saying this, that I wanted us to look at the firefighters, the police, the laborers, those organizations that are actively recruiting women. What's working, what isn't working, what they do to make them comfortable, because I know I spoke to the laborers, a local 300, and they said that when the women come to work there, they're not made to feel comfortable there. So we have to look at all of that. And I have not gotten any follow-up on any of that.
Can I suggest that Dave and Bill rework this resolution and run it by Jill before we see it again?
Thank you.
Do we need to move to defer?
Yes. The motion to defer.
I make a motion to defer.
Second. Those in favor?
I had an additional request for our general manager. We have an outstanding external affairs and marketing department led by Joe and Mike. And I would like to see the equity metrics messaging to be approachable and easy for folks to understand. I can hear the great confusion among us, and I can only imagine what our ratepayers and the public are even understanding of what equity metrics is. So my request is that as we look on the implementation phase, can we also figure out how we can speak about equity metrics in a way that people understand it, the public, I mean, not us per se, that we're much more involved, but can we have a way to market equity metrics so that actually people know what it is and they can hopefully use it? So that would be that's my suggestion. Thank you, David.
We'll
We'll
bring
keep that
that up.
separate from this resolution, though. I mean, I don't know, I don't know if that is.
It wasn't meant to be added to the resolution. It was a request that I have for the chairman.
We'll bring that back as part of the presentation at
Yeah.
the next meeting.
Excellent.
The resolution actually asks for a report back on how to make the system more user-friendly. So it is embedded within this resolution.
Thank you.
I just want to say that I understand Commissioner Vasquez as well as Commissioner Barad's concerns. But that being said, I also want to acknowledge Commissioner Funderburk, who really led this equity matrix platform, and to state that he has devoted hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of hours working with
Actually, thousands.
probably thousands.
That's what my law partner said.
No, being so meticulous, addressing your concerns during the events that he coordinated. He had community leaders from all different groups attend. These were very, very well attended events, and I feel like the messaging has gotten out and has been applauded. And so, with all due respect to your concerns, I do want to acknowledge that Commissioner Funderburk did address those concerns, and I think that once you have fresh eyes on the final document and what was desired by his original intent, I think that you'll feel more at peace, because it is in the document that he worked so diligently on.
I second that. Gender equity was clearly a part of it, so this will get clarified.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate what you're saying, but as a commissioner, if I feel strongly about something and want it emphasized, I want the right to be able to express myself. And I certainly have spoken to Commissioner Funderburk many times about equity metrics, and he knows that I'm with him on that. But my feeling is that we need to stress more the gender equity part of it. And that's my position, and I have the right to say it, and I will. Thank you.
You absolutely do.
I'm with you.
As a woman.
I'm with you.
Okay, that was post-vote discussion on item 24, because it was deferred. 8B, RPS report. Commissioner Vasquez.
Yeah, I just have a few questions on the energy storage side. I see on the report that we have proposing city-owned buildings installing for energy storage, with other distributed energy resources. Do we have an idea where are these sources are coming from?
Which buildings or which locations? Not yet. We're still working through lists and trying to get some sites. So we'll be able to come back with that later with locations. So.
Okay, and where the energy is going to be generated, right?
Right, whether it's solar, whether
Right.
it's battery storage, right, and combinations of both. Yeah, so we'll come back with
I just want to be very I would love to. So you're telling me that we're going to have a report coming up?
I don't have an exact date yet, but yeah, we will come back when we have those now.
Okay. I'm especially interested on not using energy storage as a way for us to store more fossil fuel, but renewables. So I'm letting you know where I'm coming from, so you know I want to be very forthcoming. The other comment that I have is around the community solar program. And I believe, Reiko, you mentioned that it's coming up on our last meeting. I want to just address these numbers that are in the report. So we have 702 applications. We have 178 home inspected, and we have homes that pass 33. I mean, I didn't do the percentage here, but I think we among engineers, you guys can help me out with that part. And we have installed 2 projects. This is really alarming that would you speak about why are we so backtracked?
Well, initially when, and Jason can help with this, but initially when we we did this. We did it. We have three: an A, B, and a C group of zip codes and areas where we put out the information. So initially, there are strict requirements for the roof: no two-story roofs, no flat roofs. The roofs have to be suitable, right? So when we did this initially, many of the applicants either had flat roofs, which didn't qualify, or they had two-story roofs, which didn't qualify, which were clearly spelled out in the program. And then we had others that just didn't pass the inspection. So we didn't get the numbers initially that allowed us to progress with the roof actual installations. So it's really in this last group that.
But we had 33 that passed the inspection.
Right, but those were in this last group. So we do have projects right now underway that are completed. And so over this next couple months, we will have more roofs that are completed as we go forward.
Okay. I just want to mention that I have met with several different stakeholders around projects that are just not solidified, and I think this is a huge problem. I was at the DWP Sustainability Awards last week. I spoke before the honorees, and at least 3 different of our customers came up to me to ask me, why is it taking them up to 6 months to get a PV installed or ready to work? I have conversations with folks from the energy storage residential side, and they have also expressed that it takes up to 6 months for us to get projects to get up and running. And I just think that this is really alarming, and I know that we are not we're not like other utilities, I get that, but we should be leading the way because we have more independence and autonomy. So the community solar program is something that is got a lot of attention because folks with less solar penetration don't have the opportunity that others do. So it's especially important that we ramp up this program and make it work. The other issue that I have is, it's very intuitive to me. I'm a renter. Let me just keep it as that. I'm a renter. And it's very intuitive to me that a lot of my neighbors wouldn't be able to qualify to any of these solar programs because they don't have the infrastructure capacity. They don't have the right roof. Their homes are older, and also they're renters. So we live in multifamily homes, which I want to remind DWP that when we do a lot of pilot projects and they're exciting, we need to really, really encourage collaboration and community partnership, because they know better what's happening in their community. And I wonder that when we designed this program, I don't know how we didn't think of this, that it wasn't going to be as easy as we thought. And I think that we continue, develop a lot of other different programs, and I want to encourage us to continue this model of participation that I see happening already in other different programs that we're, like the 100%, for example, we have a lot of community engagement. And this leads me to the virtual net metering, which, as you heard earlier, a lot of folks came to speak about in the public comment. I'm getting definitely a lot of emails and phone calls and requests for meetings around this, not just from advocates, but also, again, at the Sustainability Awards, some other business owners came up to me and said, it would be so much better if you have virtual net metering. So David, I want to see a pilot. We used to have a pilot. I know that back, DWP had a pilot of VNM with the county, and for various reasons, this program didn't continue. But I think I want to see. I want us to move, and I think you have been a leader on this, on a much more customer-centric, friendly utility, where people don't need to wait 6 months or 7 months to get their PV, connected, or their battery storage, or a poor person to have the ability to have solar. So I don't know how to reconcile with this, And I'm asking you to please think, I know that I have heard that we don't have enough staff, that we don't have enough engineers. I want to see a game plan and a roadmap about how we addressing all these issues that are happening today.
And much of that, including a discussion on virtual net metering, is in the presentation for the next board meeting.
Next board meeting.
One thing, some of the delays, like for batteries, was us, working with the vendors, working, with Tesla and these other ones, to where we could get a battery to test and work through that process to make sure that it functioned the way it was supposed to. And we've gone through that. If we work with them on making, sort of corrections to the system, to where now we have those batteries approved, and those connections should be much quicker.
Thank you. I want to hear, Dr. Pico, is there any additions to my comments that I'm not sure if your office has been hearing from other folks around any of these issues of connectivity
We have heard,
or the VNEM?
we have heard comments about interconnection of advanced inverters that might be able to handle backup batteries and or backup generation. The PUC process is now in the third phase of interconnection standards for that. But we haven't heard any report back on the interconnection standards for batteries and or smart inverters. So I think that's something we should ask for something coming back.
What about on the virtual net metering?
We haven't dug in deep on that, but our billing system was originally designed to handle things like indirect sales and things like virtual net metering, but it's not been implemented. And that implementation would take a period of time.
Thank you.
Council?
Yeah, at this point, we will recess in a closed session to discuss the items on the closed session agenda, and in accordance with Government Code Section 54957.1, we'll report any final actions taken thereon.